What is up, Fizz fam? So good to see you guys again. I tell you what, we missed a week, and I feel like I haven't talked to you guys in forever. And that's legitimately how it feels. I hope you guys are doing super well. Hope you're finally getting some fence in the ground. If you're like us, well, if you're in the Midwest like us, you've been getting a torrential track of rain events so that on commercial contracts, we'll, if the project gets behind, we'll have a leg to stand on when we're talking about damages and such at the end. But so for the last month, we've averaged 3 out of 5 work days having rain events. So not getting a ton in the ground. Now we are getting some in the ground. The guys are putting it in. But anyway, hope you guys are getting a ton done. I know, I tell you what, we've been busy. Fabrication shop has been absolutely slammed. E-commerce. I spent most every day this week over in e-commerce. We're selling a bunch of fence fittings online. But hope you guys are doing super well. Hope your business is busy and profitable. I tell you, so last week we didn't have a Ask the Expert because I was over in Philadelphia at Concert Distributions or just Concert Distributing's event they held there in Philadelphia. Concert and the team, thank you so much for hosting me. It was a blast. It had legitimately had a very good time. So that video is actually coming out. So that'll be out 4 weeks, Braden, something like that. 3 weeks, 4 weeks. The Philly video, 4 weeks. 4 weeks from now, you guys will see my trip to Philly. So I've been talking about it, but today's the day where I get to show you guys the first ever kind of we can review behind the scenes vlog style format that we're going to. I've talked to a lot of you guys about it, but I'm so stinking excited to show it to you guys. So we showed it to the Ozark Fence team a few weeks ago at the final Friday, and very well received. I'm always super excited about stuff like this, but I never know if other people are excited. You know what I mean? Anyway, showed it to everybody. Everyone loved it. So excited to see you guys. So I know some of you guys come and go. Totally fine. You guys are working on Saturday, grinding and hustling. Go get it. But come back at 12 o'clock Central. That's when I'll be showing you guys a sneak peek of this week's first ever vlog number 1. So stinking excited. I've said that 7 times or 8 times because that's exactly how excited I am. I'm going to keep saying it. Anyway. So, how are you guys doing? Everybody good? Everybody good? Let's check in. If you haven't said hi yet, say hi down in the chat. Let me know you're here. Also, let us know where you're from. I think it's neat to see how far reaching YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn are. Let me know that you guys are watching by saying hi and let me know where you're from. I said that already, but anyway. All right, let's check in. Ryan, first comment from Ryan says, hi from Northwest Florida. Hello, Ryan. The Fence Industry Podcast with Dan Wheeler. Dan, the man, how are you, sir? Good morning, Joe. Pump this AM. Just hired another rock star. Fantastic. So Dan, I was just listening. So Dan has a podcast, obviously the Fence Industry Podcast, right? So I was listening to his, so this week's podcast was with Magnolia Fence, and they were talking about growing and scaling, and you could hear it. Dan made a couple comments, but you could hear it in his voice like he's ready to grow, ready to hire. Now, Dan made the comment, and I absolutely agree with it. Like, if I could clone myself like 7 or 8 times, I would absolutely rule this market. We're getting close. We're getting close with hiring rock stars, but you know what I mean. And think about this. So we've got, we got 10 or 12, 14 full-time employees here, around 12. Anyway, if we could clone all those guys and me 7 times, we just take over the region. We would just take this thing on the road anyway. So happy to hear you hired a rock star, Dan. Also, Dan, update. Now, I heard, so like I said, listen to the podcast. Love it. But then you also made the comment that you've been trying to get me to do podcasts, but you're not going to twist my arm anymore. Guess what? It's happening. We had a meeting. It was that Tuesday. I think all these days blend together, but we had a meeting. This was like up there on the priority list. Get it going. Anchor, is that right? Right, Braden, we're using Anchor. So on the near horizon is, I would say, pretty close. So what we're going to do, actually, we're just going to repurpose these lives for the podcast. Super excited. And that was all because of Dan Wheeler. Everyone say thank you to Dan for twisting my arm enough to where turning this thing into a podcast. I love it. Roger Bencourt, welcome, Roger. We legitimately had a good laugh about this comment before this started. Braden was over. We were looking a little bit of a snafu on the YouTube, like linking it up thing, but it's all good now. Anyway, we were reading comments, saw Rogers. Hello, Fence fam. Hey, Joe. What? Okay, question mark, right? So, hey, Joe. If we're a Fence fam, does that make you our Fence father? Asking for a friend. No, because think about it. Like, I'm not the only Fence guy doing content, right? So we've got Sean and we've got Dan and Cannon and we've got Mark. This is always a problem. We start naming names, you forget people. Caleb over Stand Still Experts is doing YouTube content. We're all like, would we be maybe we're the social media founding fathers. I think that might be a thing. If it's not, we should make it a thing. All right. So I need to talk to all you guys that just mentioned. We'll be the social media founding fathers. I like the sound of that. Roger's really good to see you. It really is. CNS Vinyl. Finn says, howdy, guys. Howdy, CNS. Martin Lee. Hello, Martin. Hey, Fence fan from Durham, UK. Martin, welcome. So glad to have you with us. Man, I tell you what, I say this every time I see someone comment from the UK. I legitimately want to go. I check out D&J Project. If you guys follow the channel, you know I really like the guys over at D&J Projects. If you haven't checked them out, you should check them out. They've got really good content. And I want to go over there to check it out for sure. Martin, welcome. Michael Richardson says, let's talk about gravel in the bottom of the post hole. I did 3,000 foot of fence last year here in Cali. Not a single hole got gravel. Every post and plug I pull had, let's see. Let's debate gravel in the bottom of the post hole. I did 3,000 foot of fence by myself last year as a handyman. Congrats. Ton of fence. Every post I pulled was rotten in the top 12 inches. In the bottom of the post was intact. So, yeah, Martin, we're going to put a pin. I'm going to put a pin in this. We should talk about this. I think there's probably half hour worth of content here we could talk about. So I'm going to tease my answer by saying it has more to do with the aerobic zone of the soil than it does drainage. But we're going to put a pin in that. I actually I'm literally putting a pin in that. We're going to come back to that because I like this subject. Guys, let me know. Let's do this. Once you guys drop comments below, let's have this be an interactive discussion. I don't like the word debate, right? Like, we're all grown-ups here, okay? So let's have a conversation. So the conversation is going to revolve around drainage, right? I mean, that's the way I read this by saying gravel in the bottom of the hole. I think we're talking about drainage, letting water seep out from the post. So what do you guys do? What are your thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments below. We'll put a pin in this, come back in just a few minutes. I want to say hello to everyone, but this is an important conversation. Ryan says, wait for y'all to send some of that rain this way. Coming to you. I mean, we're done with it. We've had a month of rain. Everything's flooded. The lake is just dirty now. So there's a picture. So Table Rock Lake is, 45 minutes from here. It's where most people go if they're going to have a lake day, right? Well, there's a few coves that everyone likes to go to that are just like floating debris. I'm talking limbs, trees, bushes, like all the stuff that got washed out with this torrential rain, washed right into the lake. And it is not fantastic at the moment. So careful what you wish for, Ryan. Let's say that again. Careful what you wish for, Ryan. We're done with it. You can absolutely have it. Now, as I say that, now they're calling for severe storms again tomorrow. So I would love to send it to you. Luis Cordero, watching from Panama. Now, Luis, are we talking about Panama the country or Panama the city? I hope it's Panama the country. So if it is, beautiful country. Love it. Want to go back. You guys have some great peacock bass fishing there in the lakes. So, Luis, is it Panama City, Florida? Panama City, Panama? Somewhere in the country, Panama. Let me know. regardless, welcome. Ron Musgraves is here. What is up, Ron? Howdy, back at you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Ron. I really do. Seeing as vinyl has a fair point, vinyl doesn't rot. Great point. But listen, everything has its pros and cons, right? So, and listen, it also depends on what quality we're talking about, right? So we had a round of some pretty thin vinyl go through our area, I don't know, several years ago. And I'm telling you, it was followed up by a hard freeze, a really hard winter. Almost every one of those posts, and you can imagine they came through a big box store, but the posts split, right? So we don't do vinyl, we don't handle vinyl. Just we've got two companies in town that are very significant in that market. They're a manufacturing dealer, right? So they'll bring in just container loads of the vinyl, they'll route it themselves or profile it themselves, and then put it out in the market. And they also install it. So we kind of made the decision years ago. Do we want to tiptoe into that? Not particularly. I mean, could we go in and do what I love doing, do some marketing and make a splash? Absolutely. But, if you have two large incumbent companies in the market already, 3 is probably a crowd, right? So, but anyway, they replaced a ton of that cheap vinyl. So now our market in general is like a little gun shy with vinyl. Now, like I said, with the right marketing, I think we could probably overcome that pretty easily. But you do have a point. It doesn't rot. Caseric Distributors, what is up? Good morning from Philly. Thanks for coming last week. It was a blast. Look forward to next year's event. Completely agree. Absolutely agree. I was reliving it while so we were going through the video content I shot there, and I was remembering, it was such a good time. It really was. The video is going to seem like all we did was eat because that was a lot of the content I filmed. I can assure you we did other things besides eat. We had a great event there in Philly. We had Caseric's first ever training event. So it was a training event. Is also it was a training event, but it was also like a lunch and learn, right? So they had a food truck come in with some of the best street tacos I've had ever. Again, okay, we did eat a lot at this trip, but it was all legitimately really good. But Caleb and Michael both came down from Stay and Still Experts. We got some really good content, some really good video of the eco cleaner they were using. Fantastic product. But yeah, I think it was a win. I really do. We talked about that afterwards. We did kind of like a recap. I think it was great. Had a really good time. We met up with some people that we'd met previously at the Stain and Steel University in Nashville. So they came by for some recurrent training, right? Just to stay on top of exactly what's going on. We also talked about some other products that Caseric distributes, such as the Post Saver, that sort of, they carry a lot. If you guys are in the Northeast and are looking for a distributor, check out Caseric Distributors. I almost said distribution. It's distributors. Check out Caseric. Had a great time. Guys, thanks for having me out. I really do appreciate it. Wyatt, what's up? That's exactly how I read that in my mind. Was that how long ago? Brayden, you know that commercial? What's up? Well, it's a big brand. I don't know that we say the brand, but I always all right. So this won't make the video that you guys will see because there was music in the background and there's copyright issues. But Eric and I had a lengthy discussion about the fact that he didn't know some culturally foundational music, right? I was playing my Spotify. We're down in e-commerce and we're packing a bunch of stuff up to ship. And I was playing some pretty good music. And he legitimately didn't know what it was. What are you talking? No, and we're talking about music that was we're not talking about, I don't know. We're not talking about super old music, right? We're talking about who was it? It was Akon or Nelly it was Nelly. What? So now I question everything, right? So now I have to ask because well, I knew that commercial, the What's Up commercial, but maybe that's not, maybe that was so long ago that's not, I got Eric. If you're watching Monday, I'm going to ask you about that commercial and don't go cheat and go to YouTube because you'll find it. But all right. Wyatt, welcome. Ryan says, what do you know about the new Postmaster gate post versus generic round post or doubling up normal Postmaster post for gates? We use round. We use round schedule 40 post. It works good with the Shark hardware. I love using Shark hardware. We don't have callbacks on it. Listen, we sell it, but I'm not saying that because we sell it, right? We sell it because we use it in our business. I think it's a fantastic product, and it means we offer lifetime workmanship warranty on all our gates. Because, now listen, maybe they need adjusted every couple years because the posts settle or something like that. It happens. But one guy, 5 minutes, can go adjust that gate. But to use those, you need to use a round post. Now, I paused on that because if you guys watch the recap for Fence Tech, I believe we showed they've got a new hinge coming out that is a flush mount or a flat mount hinge. Not out yet, but I was talking to Michael over at Nationwide, who's partnering up with Forney on creating their new hinges. Anyway, sounds like production's in production now. They should start receiving shipments mid-year or late summer. So, all right. Really long answer. Let's get this back on track. What do you know about the new Postmaster gate post? I don't use them. We use round. We have a solid system, right? And our system is round post, Shark hinges, Shark latch, schedule 40, 2.5 inch. They work for us. I understand other people use other posts. Totally fine. To you could, if you're using regular wood hardware, like, again, Nationwide sells the contemporary strap hinges or contemporary T hinges. If you use something like that, you could use the Postmaster gate post. There's a decent percentage. Well, it's just our process, right? And if there's not a significant reason to change our process, so if it's not a significant improvement to our process, whether it's efficiency or just a legitimately better product, I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess with our process because it works. All the guys are trained on it. They know what's going. If you keep changing things, efficiency is going to drop, right? Because you got to relearn it, right? And you have to retrain. You have to create the process first off that works efficiently for your crew, and then you have to train that process over and over until it's second nature. Till what Scott always talks about is when the crew pulls up, it's like a NASCAR pit stop. Everyone comes out of the truck knowing exactly what they're going to do, what tools they need to grab first, what tools they need to grab second. It just works really efficiently because we use the same process over and over and over. Regardless of the yard, regardless of what the job is, 90% of it's the same, right? Layout's going to be different. Gate placement, okay, that'll be a little bit different. But we're going to use Postmaster posts. We're going to use 2.5 inch schedule 40 round steel posts. We're going to use Shark hinges, Shark latches, period. So that's our process. Now, I'm not saying one or the other is better or worse. I honestly haven't tried the Postmaster gate post just because our system is working. Now, if we had a pain point with our system, if it wasn't efficient to install or if we were having some product issues, not failures, but just long-term maintenance issues or something like that, more than normal maintenance calls, warranty calls, something like that, we'd look into it. And I'm not saying we won't ever, but right now for our process, the round post works super well. If we switch out the Postmaster gate post, we'd also have to switch out the hinges and latches. So we're going to talk about different layout. We're going to talk about different hinges. Now we're going to have to talk about different gate opening sizes. So we know that to use the Shark hinges, it's a 6.5 inch takeoff for a single gate. So that means we can make the fabrication shop. So we only use steel frame gates. Let's start there. We make our own steel frame gates, 1.5 square tube. And the fabrication shop makes a ton of 6 foot tall, 5 foot tall, 4 foot wide, 5 foot tall, 5 foot wide, 3 foot tall, the common sizes, but they're always 4 foot and 5 foot wide. So the guys know I need to set this opening at 5 foot, 6.5 inches end to end, right? Inside to inside. Now, because we got the fabrication shop, Matt and his crew can whip out a custom gate if need be, if there's a line in the way or if it's a tight opening or it's a slope, whatever. Scott can call it into Matt. Matt can put it in the list, and Scott will say, hey, I want to be back here in 2 days. Matt will have it done in a day, right? So that as soon as Scott's ready to go, he can pick it and go. But anyway, what I mean to say is everything's a process, right? the fabric shop knows that they're making 4 foot and 5 foot wide gates. If we switch hinges, now we've got to change that up. Are we still using 4 foot gates? Probably. I mean, it seems keep the standard as much as possible. Now we've got to switch our opening sizes, right? And there's always going to be pain points with that. And when you start switching process, mistakes will happen because we're all human, right? And anyway, really long answer to say we haven't tried it. So we are, I'm trying to think, we've got a project coming up where we are doubling up Postmaster Post. It's a horizontal fence. It's going to get a lot of wind. Like it's just out in the open. There's something else different about it. But when we bid it with twice as many Postmaster Posts because we're going to double them up. Matt out in the fab shop is going to weld them. And then we're going to rip some 2x4s for attaching to pickets, the horizontal pickets and all that. But so we will be doing that with doubling up Postmaster Post. I like that if you're wanting to strengthen the post. Now, the drawback is how you going to cover these things, right? So we're going to figure out a process that looks really nice. I mean, well, I've seen both Sean and Cannon both have the nail gun, the ballistic nail gun, I believe it's called, that'll shoot through that steel post. So we'll probably look into something like that. But that's what I know about it. That's what I know about the new Postmaster Gate Post, generic crown post. A little bit long of an answer, a little bit lengthy answer, but, that is where we're at. Cirque says donkeys. Don't forget donkeys. All right. The first, literally, Chris pulls up to the airport, picks up, back up. When we got to Philadelphia, met up with Caleb and Michael there at the airport. Our flights landed within an hour of each other. It was super slick. They showed up. Chris came wheeling up in the truck. We all jumped in. He's like, "Are you guys hungry?" I said, "Well, you told me we're getting lunch, so I'm starving because I didn't eat at the connecting flight. I've been waiting. I'm going to Philly where we're getting a Philly cheesesteak. Like, that's just what we're doing." And so he's like, "All right." Now, I did okay in school. All right. Geography, I got a pretty good handle on geography. So we're getting Philly cheesesteak. So we're going and we're driving away, and he's kind of pointing out, "Hey, here's some stadiums, and here's this." We went by a massive shipyard that I thought was unreal amazing. But then we start going over this bridge. So, well, what's this bridge? And he told us, and I forgot the name of it. But he goes, "We're going into Jersey." Going into Jersey? We went to Jersey for a Philly cheesesteak. That was the first one. But we went to a place called Donkeys. And fantastic. It was fun. Like, literally, we park, open the door, and the smell is the first thing. It just smacks you in the face. And I was starving already. I would have eaten one of these. I would have just gone in there and eaten the bread right off the grill. But I was starving. Anyway, fantastic. What an intro to Philly cheesesteak. So we should do like a food show. I feel like we should do a Finn's Fam food show. It was really good. So cannot forget donkeys. Then you guys will see. So here in a month, if I tell you guys exactly what happened the whole time, you're not going to want to watch the video. So we got to leave some hidden gems in there. But no, so the last day also, Chris picked me up. So Caleb and Michael had to leave Friday. So the training was on Friday. They left Friday evening. Saturday, I had an afternoon flight. Chris picked me up. We went back into the city, and now I'm not going to tell you what we did. I'm going to leave some hidden gems in there for you, but we had a good time. Went and saw some history, I'll say. Well, by saying that, now you know what I did. Anyway, so, okay. What all do you fish? So, man, Wyatt, I'll fish for whatever's biting, but here, so at Table Rock, you've got you got some crappie, you got some, striped bass are the dream down here. White bass, striped bass. Now, listen, my dad, so me and my dad and my granddad went on a fishing trip. Gosh, this has been 13 years ago. Kind of doing some backwards math in my head, maybe 17 years. Anyway, up to Fort Pierre in South Dakota. Went to Pierre, South Dakota. Great walleye fishing lake. And we did some. We had a guy. This is who did we go with? We went with Merchants Metals. Actually, Merchants Metals took some of the vendors up to go fishing, and we're out there fishing, and we get into some striped bass. We get into some white bass, and the guide went to go toss his back, and Dad said, "Whoa." So part of this is they clean the fish and then they cook them that evening. Dad said, "Oh, let's keep that and let's cook it up tonight." The guy looks at it and goes, "What? This? Oh, this is a trash fish," and throws it back. Now, my dad is not typically a violent man, but around here, if you call a white bass or a striped bass a trash fish, we are almost obligated to fight you because that is like a pinnacle fish here. Now, I guess if you come from a land where walleye is plentiful, I mean, we limited out in like 2 or 3 hours, so they had a bunch of walleye up there. And here's why they call them trash fish, because they're harder to clean. They got more bones in them. So if you're a fisherman that like doesn't want to clean fish like not all the way, but it's just harder. Like if you're not wanting to invest time cleaning fish, if you just want to clean the easy fish like walleye, now walleye taste good, but they're easy to clean. I mean, just call them trash fish. But if you're a dedicated fisherman, dedicated to your craft, and you're okay putting in a couple extra minutes cleaning a fish, white fish or white bass is the fish to catch. Anyway, we catch bass here. We got a big bass lake. Table Rock is on one of the tours. So, so the gentleman that mentioned Panama, so the radio station we advertise with takes its advertising companies on a trip once a year, and one of the trips was to Panama City, Panama. We went to fish Lake Catoon. Yeah, I think that's it. It's a lake in between the two locks in the lock system. So we went to fish it because they have peacock bass. You want to talk about some good fishing and some good eating? Peacock bass is where it's at there too. But yeah, when we go on vacation, I like to go to the beach. Just my idea of a vacation. I usually like to try to get a day of deep sea fishing in there. So we've gotten our share of catch a lot of barracuda. And you want to, not my favorite thing to catch. Well, they got a mouthful of razor blades. So you bring them in the boat and you take your ankles at your own risk. But your ankles are at risk. But then we catch some dolphin. I tell you what, one of the other guys that was traveling with us, so I took my turn fishing. I struck my turn in the sea, like we were rotating through the seats. I caught it was probably a little barracuda. It wasn't even worth bringing in the boat. This lucky devil says, and then so we're like, well, it's time the boat captain says time to go back. No problem. This is down in where were we? We were in Cabo San Lucas. And anyway, he says time to go back. So we turn around, and then one of the guys with us like, well, could we just keep it a line in? I'll just sit in the chair, just see if we catch anything back on the way back. And he's like, oh yeah, sure. We were going for sailfish, right? Because Cabo's known for sailfish. Didn't catch any all day. And there were a mess of boats, and no one was catching these fish. So anyway, guy says, yeah, sit there. We'll troll for a while on the way back. Well, don't you know, 2 minutes into him sitting in this seat, he catches a monster sailfish. Anyway, so we threw him in, and we haven't heard from that guy ever again. But so we catch bigger fish sometimes too. So this is about the post. Yeah, see, that's the thing. If it's not broke, don't fix it. You'll spend more time and effort training and teaching a new process and new system. When you start calculating out man hours to change it, changing over a system could be $8,000 or $10,000. Well, probably more if you really. It depends on what you're tweaking, right? But I don't unless it's a significant value increase, and value can be efficiency, value can be a better product, value, whatever the value increase is, it has to be significant. Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Absolutely. All right. We put a pin in a conversation up here. All right, let me get it. Gravel in the bottom post. So I did 3,000 foot of fence, which again, kudos to you. Doing it by yourself, that's a ton of fence. Every post I pulled was rotten in the top 12 inches in the bottom of my post was intact. So drainage could be part of this, right? But more than anything, it's going to be, so there's the aerobic zone in the soil. The top, it might be 12 inches, but the top of the soil, top several inches, right, is the aerobic zone. So the aerobic zone has all the microbes, it has all the beneficial fauna. That's a good word for you. All the beneficial fauna of the soil resides in that top, 6, 10, 12 inches of soil, because it needs oxygen, it needs moisture, some of these organisms need warmth. So they stay in the top so many inches, because once you get below that, it's an anaerobic zone. It just doesn't have oxygen. Well, rot is actually these nutrients feeding on the post, right? Whether they're trying to get to the moisture of the post or they're trying to get to the fiber of the wood, they're consuming this post. These microorganisms are. So, and it could also have to do with the acidity of the soil. But you said the post further on down the post aren't rotten. So I'd be inclined to think it might not be the acidity of the soil so much as it is, like I said, those microorganisms worming their way in there to get at this post. Now, it typically starts at the concrete line, and then they start burrowing their way further into that post, where when you pull it, it looks like, even though it's encased in concrete, it looks like the top 4, 6, 8 inches inside the concrete are rotted. You're like, well, so it's got to be moisture, right? Now, moisture is a key contributing factor to rot, because moisture is one of the things that this microfauna needs to exist, right? So drainage. Now, if it's constantly wet, it will increase the rate of rot. So you might be honest on it. If you have a really wet soil, putting gravel at the bottom will drain it. But there's also the other argument that if you have a high water table, it allows the water to come in from the bottom. You give it an opening to come in, just like you let it go out. But a lot of guys do this. A lot of guys will, not a lot of guys, but ag guys, it's more common to either use sand. So they'll drill it out and then they'll use sand, or they'll use fine, like 1/4 inch base rock to pack in to allow all the water to drain off this post. You see this used a lot of different ways. In our region, it's not necessarily as common to put gravel on the bottom. So the procedure I've seen used is you put down 4 to 6 inches of gravel at the base, put in your post, pour concrete around it, so that the post will have a weak point for the water to come out. Now, I think it would probably be more beneficial on maybe a round steel post, because so what we see a lot of times on older steel posts is the caps fall off or whatever, they get rainwater down in them. Well, if it's encased in concrete, it's just a solid cup, so it will fill with water. Winter comes, it could split that post out over, not the first year, over a series of years. So on a round steel post, I could see that being a really nice point, having a weep point where it can weep out that water, or drilling a weep hole. I mean, it kind of the same thing, right? But on a wood post, I don't know. I don't know that it, I mean, it's worth testing, right? But the test would last 10 years. Whether putting gravel at the bottom of the hole, but it still wouldn't prohibit those micronutrients, microfauna from feeding on what's there on the post in that top 12 inches of soil. There is a product, Post Saver. So Post Saver was one of the products that Kasurg Distributors was talking about at their training event, where it completely envelopes the post. It's a solid sleeve that sleeves over the post, and then you heat it with a heat gun, right? So typically like a torch, right? Weed burner. You can use anything that produces a lot of heat will shrink this thing up. But what it also does, so it also has bitumen, where it will bond with the post. Use a small roller, make good contact with the post, and it seals that post. Now the sleeves are fairly long, to where it sits, I believe, 6 inches above the soil, and then it sits about 6 inches below the aerobic zone in the soil. It prevents all those nutrients, all those microorganisms from attacking the post. They either got to go above, which they live in the soil, so they can't, unless you're piling bark up against bark or mulch or pine straw. Every region has a different version of this. But if you pile a bunch of that up against the post, then micronutrients can get to the post. Anyway, it's above and below the aerobic zone of the soil. That would be, in my mind, that would be the fail-safe way of preventing rot. You just don't allow them access to the post at all. So gravel at the bottom of the pole, it won't affect, well, I don't want to say it won't affect the rot rate, because having the post be continually wet could, like if you had, it could. But a better solution would be a product such as that Post Saver product. Several guys in our groups carry these products. I believe Caleb and Ashley do over at Stand Still Experts. Obviously, Chris at Kasurk, they carry these as well. You could reach out to one of those guys. They are also sold like on Amazon. I've seen them sold in local like Home Depot, like big box stores sort of thing. That would be a better solution than gravel in the bottom of the hole when we're talking about addressing rot. One guy's opinion, though. Let's keep that in perspective here. That a lot of what I do has that caveat in it. That hey, this is my opinion based on experience. You know, third generation fence guy. I learned from my dad, who learned from his dad, and I've been at it too long. So I started probably when I was 12 or 13, which is an interesting story. So that story is, I can tell that story later if you want to, but it was interesting. So I started about 12 or 13. My daughter is now working for Ozark Fence. She actually, at this very moment, she's down in e-commerce, moving and making boxes, and she's 12. So that was kind of an interesting, like, all right, well, continuing the legacy sort of thing. But I say it's my opinion. It's one guy's opinion, but it's based on quite a few years of experience. I hope that helps. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this, though. Does putting 4 to 6 inches of gravel at the bottom of the post help prevent rot in wood posts? I believe that's it. That's what we're talking about here. So I was trying to read the other posts as well. Yeah, I think that's the conversation. Let me know what you guys think. So Martin has a great point. Isn't the top 12 inches encased in concrete, though? We don't put any gravel in the hole here in the UK. So the UK really is somewhere that we should watch when we're talking about rot, because the UK gets a significant amount of rainfall annually, a lot more than really anyone else, just because of their geographical location. Now, if you'll remember, we did a couple of reviews on D&J Projects videos where they're using concrete posts and concrete kickboards. They call them gravel boards, where because it's so wet, they have quite a lot of rot. But so it's interesting to hear that the UK doesn't put gravel. Now that could also have to do with the water table. I would think that it rains and Martin, you can tell me better, but I would think the water table is probably pretty high in the UK, just because of the amount of rainfall. So putting gravel in the bottom would actually allow water to wick up through that post capillary effect. But I don't know. So isn't 12 inches encased in concrete? It is, but so a lot of the fence contractors that I've had experience, and we do this as well, will cover the top. So the concrete will fill up to within about 4 to 6 inches of the top of grade, the top of the ground, and then we'll backfill over so that grass can grow up around it. It looks really nice. But what we do when doing that, it does look nice. But what we do is we give those microorganisms away into the post. Actually, so one of the videos, gosh, that video was, we posted that video. I can't tell you how long, but I did a review video of a guy talking about having a concrete reveal above grade. And in that case, when the concrete does extend above grade, it would keep those microorganisms out. But most contractors will leave soil. Most contractors here in the U.S. will leave soil above the concrete so that grass can grow over it. Also, in the northern climates, they do that so that that top 6 to 8 inches will freeze first and help keep the concrete. So frost heave is a real thing here, to where the ground will freeze, and when it freezes, it wants to push everything up, rocks, gravel, whatever, but also fence posts, mailbox posts, whatever. So the frost will heave this thing up out of the ground. So the thought is, by leaving 6 or 8 inches of soil above the concrete in the northern climates, it helps cap that. So that frost heave, when it's trying to push that up, the top 6 or 8 inches will freeze first and actually help hold that in place, is the thought. But it also lets all the microorganisms into it. So interesting to note, on the Post Saver product, it was actually developed in the UK for their wet climate, which is why we're having a lot of success with it here. We don't have nearly as much annual rainfall. Now, we do have periods of rainfall. Like I said, we've had rain for the last month, but when you look at the annual rainfall, the UK has this beat by quite a bit. But like I said, the product was made over there, so you got to think it's going to last. And they've done, I want to say, they've done some accelerated testing, but I want to say they guarantee it for like 20 or 25 years. I think it's 20 years is what they warranty it for, against specifically failure due to rot. Kyle Hamburg, how are you? Hey, Mr. Evers, just found your channel. Welcome. Seems like you're the wizard of fence knowledge. I'm not. I'm one guy that knows a lot about fence, a fair amount. But then here's the thing. Like, I think I know a bit about what I do, right? But then when you get around other members of Fence Fam, you were like at one of these standing events or training events at Standstill Experts or the AFA on the road. They just got done with the training event down, I want to say it's Baton Rouge, maybe. You get around other Fence Fam, you realize you don't know what you don't know, right? So I talk to guys, Matt Warner, Sean, Dan, Cannon, Mark, Caleb, any of these guys, you realize I know a fair amount of information in my lane, but these guys travel on different lanes. Like for me, you ask me a question about ag fence, I'm not going to know where to start. I know about this much knowledge that can apply to ag fence because in our market, it's just not as prevalent, right? So we just don't see that kind of, we just don't have that market here. But anyway, I do know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. And you can quote me on that. Definitely going to subscribe. Kyle, thank you. Welcome to the Fence Fam. So good to have you. Fall to become a fence expert myself. Kyle, welcome to the Fence Fam. We're so glad to have you. Where are you from, Kyle? Let us know where you're from. Aspiring home builder here. Very good. Home building's still hot. So talking to other guys in other markets, home building might be cooling in other areas just because of interest rates is leading to lesser loans, home loans, that whole different discussion. This is not a finance channel. If you guys haven't noticed, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. But home building here in the Midwest, still going strong. I mean, there's new people coming into the home building space still here in the Midwest. So depending on where you are, Kyle, I think it could be good for you. I got an interesting email. Who was this email from? Oh, it was from, I don't know if it's from one of the box stores, one of the big box stores. I got to read this to you. Let me see. I'm not going to tell you which one. Well, yeah, you guys, if you shop here, you got this email. It said lumber prices have just dropped. Buy some today. It's literally the headline in the email. Lumber prices are dropping and we're passing along the savings to you. I don't know. I almost wanted to reply back and say, well, when can we expect to see this at your shelves? Because we haven't seen it yet. But if lumber prices do start coming down, then obviously that helps out the home building segment of the market. So I don't know, maybe it's a good time to enter the market regardless, I think. Chris, I'm going to butcher this and I apologize, but I'm going to give it a shot. Chris Zamplione. I probably butchered that. I'm sorry. So if you can't use the post sleeve, if the post is in the ground already, how can I stop the rot? Chris, I tell you what, this is $1 million question. It really honestly is. Now, there is another product called Fence Armor. So what it is an aluminum sheath isn't the right word. It's a half square where you can put it over the post. It can screw into the post. So what that product does, so one of the problems of these posts is you give the microorganisms away into the post when you tear into this thing with a weed eater, right? So when you're weed eating, I'm guilty of this. You want the grass right around the post as low as possible because that makes it easier for you to weed eat in the future. You do your mowing, then you come around with a weed eater and just to the ground right around these posts. But what you're doing also is you're also stripping away the outer layers of this post if it's a wood post as you're weeding. So what this Fence Armor does is it prevents damage to the post. It's a sacrificial layer is what it is. So the weed eater is eating into this Fence Armor as opposed to eating into the post. But it's not going to have the same effect that the post sleeves do, that the post saver sleeves do. But that's probably what I would try if I had wood posts. So when we replaced our fence, we used the Postmaster post. But if I had wood posts, I look into the Fence Armor. It's distributed by a lot of the same people that distribute the Post Saver. They're a nice companion product to that. So check out Fence Armor for sure. Kyle from Eugene, Oregon. Very good. So my grandfather on my father's side All of his kin and family are from out there in Oregon. Minnesota born, but the cold is just too much for me. Look at that. All right. Dan Wheeler says, for us in wood post, 36-inch hole. The hole is filled with concrete, all but the top 4 inches. Our wood posts are 8 foot, so we float them and set high. When we get rot, it's at that 4 inches of ground contact, 0 rot on the post and the footing. So that's interesting. So for you guys, the rot is contained to the concrete layer. So a lot of, and this might be a conversation about soil conditions too, because a lot of times when we pull these posts and they break, so we get a kind of a glimpse into the wood below the concrete level. It's for us, it rots probably the next 2 or 3 inches below that concrete layer. But it sounds like you guys aren't. So here's the thing too. We need a scientist on the show at some point, because there was a comment in one of these videos that got my wheels turning, and it was in regards to the acidity of the concrete being used. So is the acidity of the concrete playing a role in the rot? I don't know, but maybe that's part of this conversation, Dan. So Dan uses a lot of premix. So concrete truck rolling down the road, right? Whereas we'll use a lot of bagged concrete. For us, premix isn't as much of a thing on a lot of our projects. So maybe that begs the question, is the acidity of the concrete, like the lime or whatever used in the concrete, having something to do? Because, I mean, so concrete is a mix of the aggregate that you find in your area, right? Mixed with Portland or whatever. So it could be the aggregate in our area is a higher acidity level than the aggregate in your area. I'm making wild guesses here, but I wonder if that's a thing. We need to find a scientist and ask them. That's what we need to do. Ooh, Braden, let's make a note. Let's find concrete scientist. That's the note. So I legitimately want to figure this out. Okay. So, so the point is, Dan's saying the same thing though. So they cover the 4 inches below grade, and then that's where they see the rot, because that's the aerobic zone. It's got oxygen, it's got moisture, and it's got warmth, which are kind of like the key components to these microorganisms' growth, right? And then they attack the wood, trying to get nutrients out of the wood, fiber and whatnot. So where you see a lot of the rot. Star Jazz Bell. I like that name. This is Renee from Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome, Renee. You may soon know me as the 69-year-old woman who built a fence from what I learned from you. Fantastic. I now know you as that. I'm in good health. I just need help with the physical part. I love it. I love that so much, Renee. Let us know how it went. I mean, it already sounds impressive. So send me an email, joe@thefenceexpert.show. Brandon, can you drop that in the comments? Send me an email. I'd love to learn more about it, learn about your experience and how that went. Yeah, congratulations. I like that a lot. Thank you, Renee, for letting us, giving us feedback on that. Martin says, over here, we do have a lot of rain, generally in the autumn and the winter months. You say that, but I'm watching D&J's product. You guys have been getting a lot of rain in the spring, too. So those guys, it seems like 1 or 2 days of every week for the last ever on their channel, there's rain in the forecast. So it's always raining on those guys. Usually we'll leave 2 inches below ground level to backfill the hole with soil. 6 to 10 inches seems like a lot. And so this is probably a regional thing, too. For us, 6 inches is kind of about right. But Dan says they do 4 inches. So, and when I say 6 inches, we're not measuring this, right? So like it probably legitimately could be 4 to 6 inches. Yeah. So yeah, 6 to 10 is probably a bit much. It depends how deep your hole is and all that. But the point is you want a lot of soil above that. Josh Rand, aloha to you, sir. So that was both a greeting and his company name. Josh has Aloha Fence. Josh, it's always good to see you here. Josh had a great conversation with Dan Wheeler 2 weeks. It came out 2 weeks ago, I believe, week before last. All right. Or the week before. Anyways, great podcast. I liked it a lot. Now, I'm going to test my memory here, but I believe Josh is, actually, I'm almost certain Josh is from Utah. So, Josh, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Well, so, Chris, I stand corrected. Fence armor is North American galvanized steel that is powder coated, not aluminum. I apologize. I should know this. We had Al on a year ago or so. So, I apologize to both you and Al. I really do. It's powder coated aluminum. I like that. And I like the fact that it's North American. So a lot of the metal products we see are brought over from Asia, and sometimes the quality is lacking. We'll leave it at that. But like that it's North American metal for sure. Chris, you're welcome for the info. Hope I didn't butcher your name too much. Cannon Johnson from the Dan and Cannon Show. Nope, that's not what it's called. My Fence Life. I guess it could be called the Dan and Cannon Show, but My Fence Life Show. If you guys haven't followed them on Facebook, go ahead and do that. Hey, Fence fam, checking in from Mississippi on my way home. Glad to listen to this. Cannon, so good to have you with us. Cannon was actually teaching the wood installation discipline at the AFA on the road training that just wrapped up. I'd like to learn more about that, Cannon. Let us know how that went. It looked, judging by the Facebook post, it went very well. Josh says, I did 5 miles of wood privacy fence on Travis Air Force Base. That's quite a lot. We set posts in 30-inch holes and domed the concrete per ARCA specs. I like that word. So this concept comes up a lot in the comment section of when we're talking about setting posts in concrete. So one of the, like I said, one of the videos right now that's doing really well is me reviewing to another video that showed it was probably like a 6-inch above grade reveal. So doming the top of the post absolutely helps. So water won't pool there at the very top of the concrete. If you're going to leave the concrete exposed, it's better to dome it so that the water sheds off. Also, it does provide a barrier from the microorganisms from getting into the post. You're providing however tall that dome is, 4 inches, 6 inches, keeps the microorganisms away. It does probably prolong the life. You just have to be okay with seeing concrete every, 8 feet, 10 feet, 6 foot, whatever the spec is between posts. But if you're going to have concrete above grade, doming is the way for sure. 5 miles is a lot of fence, Josh. Actually, I think you shared this story. Is that the story you shared on the Dan Wheeler podcast? You were talking about, well, you guys should listen. Is an impressive story of overcoming some obstacles Josh faced. Martin says, yeah, I agree, Dan. Okay. This is the email address. So Renee or anyone that wants to send me an email, send it to me at joe@thefenceexpert.show. Sure love to hear from you guys. Now, I may not reply the same day because things are a bit crazy. As you guys will start to see in our week in review videos, or week in the life video. Is that what week in the life, right? Week in the life videos. Things are a bit crazy here. It's really, and it's hard to try to capture all of the craziness on camera too, because we're bringing in other team members onto the video, as you guys will see. So it's kind of hard, like keeping track of everybody's craziness, but I may not respond to you the same day. It may not be the next day, but I leave them on unread and answer them as I can for sure. Ken says, training went great. Testing a new name for myself, courtesy of my buddy BJ, the Face of Fence. Is that too much or no? Go for it, Ken. Absolutely. Cannon is now the Face of Fence. That reminds me of an old joke. So when we started doing radio, my granddad told me he always thought I had a face for radio. But here we are on YouTube, so you never know. But is there a joke there about that? Maybe Face of Fence. I don't know. We'll have to consider this. Cannon is now shall from this day forth be known as the Face of Fence for whatever it means coming from me. Walt Dennis, good morning. Walt is in sunny Texas. Is it sunny in Texas? I always think it's sunny in Texas. Maybe it's not. But Walt Dennis, welcome, sir, to the show. It's always good to hear from you. Roger says, even if you don't respond in the same week, it's okay. Roger knows for a fact that I'm guilty of this. He does. He emailed me a couple weeks ago, and it sat for probably a good week. But he shot me another email. Said, hey, just following up on this, making sure I got the right email address. He did, and I replied back, and we had a little bit of a conversation then. But so it might not even be in the same week. But wheels are turning here. So you guys will see on the channel, but we've had some things, some developments here. We're growing, which is always good. Like I said, we jumped into this e-commerce thing with both feet and really taken off, which is nice. But it takes a lot to get it up off the ground. So what I like to do is when we're trying out a new idea, I like to do it myself. I usually grab a team member that I think we're probably going to assign this thing to long term. And then me and them work through the process of creating the processes, procedures, the standard operating procedures, SOPs, that sort of thing. And then eventually hand it off, right? So right now we're in the process. We proved it out. So we spent a month. We spent probably 6 months building out the site and adding items to it. But just in the last month, so we had a small room, and it was our fulfillment room. And then we added another platform to the sales channel, and that platform absolutely went nuts. So now we're growing into a larger fulfillment room. And eventually I'll have to hand this off because, as you guys that follow the channel know, we're starting a whole nother company that will start weaving wire. Last I heard was mid to late August. So we've got a few months to get e-commerce up off the ground, hand that off to a team member, let them start running with it. And we have. You guys will see more of that on the upcoming videos, but they have taken it and absolutely are running with it. So, yeah, it's all good. So, and that's kind of where my daughter's working in right now. She's down there moving boxes and making boxes, and her life right now is boxes. She's doing a great job. It's gonna stick. Cannon face the fence. Martin says, just a general question, Joe. Do you have a lot of new build site work over there, or do you mainly just do single property customer work? Well, okay. So on the residential side, we're almost exclusively single property. So we don't typically work for developers. I was going to say builders, but we've got 2 projects right now going on for a particular home builder, but they're one each, right? So he's a custom home builder that does some really nice houses. But anyway, we don't typically do 4 or 5 houses in a row. There are guys here that like that work, and they will absolutely outbid anybody to get that work. So we let them have that honor. But new builds, we do quite a bit of new builds. So on the residential side, we actually keep track of new housing starts with, historically in our market, our residential business follows new housing starts by about 6 months. So if we see a spike in new housing starts, last quarter, we'll know 6 months from then we had better be ready for a push on residential, because 3 things keep a fence company in business: kids, pets, and neighbors. They can be your kids, your pets, your neighbors, or they could be the neighbors' kids or pets, and you're the neighbor. I don't know how that neighbor thing works, but anyway, kids and pets are the top 2 reasons. So somebody moves into a new house, they've likely got kids or pets, or the neighbors have kids or pets, and you're going to be building a fence. Somebody's going to be building a fence. Anyway, in our market, we follow new home starts by about 6 months. But we typically work directly for the customer, the new homeowner. We don't typically work for developers where they're bidding out the perimeter fence or they're building out. They don't typically, home builders in our area, developers, spec home builders, don't typically include the fence in it. They like to, by the time the fence goes in, they want to be done. They want to be moving on to the next series of houses, the next subdivision, that sort of thing. So there's not a ton of that work. There is some of it. Like I said, there's some guys that really like to bid that work aggressively, and we let them have the honor. But yeah, we do a fair amount of new home work there, new residential work. All right. I think we're caught up on comments. So if you guys have questions or comments, drop them in the comments below. Let's see who's interacting with the page. Now, this is only on what we've learned. This is only on Facebook. So if you're giving us a thumbs up on YouTube, thank you. Really appreciate that. But it doesn't show me You can't see. I'm pointing at it like you guys can see it. Like literally there's a box for me right here that shows me like who's interacting. But let's see. So far, the likes on Facebook, Wyatt, thank you. Ron Musgraves, thank you. Missy Basnett, thank you very much. The Fence Industry Podcast and Zach Smith, thank you both. The two different people. Fence Industry Podcast with Dan Wheeler and then Zach Smith. And we got a heart. Who's it? That's Taylor. Okay. Taylor, thank you. That's understandable. Guys, if you can give this show a like, it really does help. It really helps with the algorithm. And if you're not subscribed, check out right below. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be right below. If the button's red, that means you haven't subscribed yet. Hit that button, subscribe to the channel. We've got a new format coming, so we're going to keep up. So it's a week in review. This is almost like I did not plan this, but in the shows I watch that really have stuff planned, they mention it every hour. It's at the top of the hour at 12 o'clock. So in 54 minutes, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, 54 minutes, we're going to be long. You guys get to preview the first ever Week in the Life video. So we're changing the format. Week in the Life video. So a weekly recap of what happened at Ozark Fence, kind of behind the scenes, will come every Saturday. So you'll get notification on that if you have your notifications turned on. But then every Wednesday, we're going to continue the content you guys have already come to know me and the team for producing. The reviews, the My Fence stories, is that what we call it, My Fence story? Yeah. Okay. Not to be confused with My Fence Life. I'm not trying to steal anyone's titles here. But, yeah, that will come out on Wednesdays. So we'll be having reviews and just all the content that you're used to seeing on the channel will be moved to Wednesdays. New content will stay on Saturdays because we put a poll up because my thinking was we should make it Sunday because a lot of guys are out in the field. They're grinding and hustling and getting fence built on Saturdays. Let's post it on Sundays. That way they get to see it the day it comes out. They don't have to wait to see it until the next day. But we put a poll up, and you guys chose Saturday more than Sunday. It was close for a while. It was like 49-51, 50-50. It was really close. But at the end, Saturday pulled away. So it remains on Saturday until we put another poll up in probably 6 months, and then it can change to Sunday. Maybe. The thing with the algorithm is you have to be consistent for a while. The first time you change it, the algorithm's going to get a little bit weird. They're not going to know how to handle that. So anyway, new content coming. You guys can see it on YouTube if you're subscribed and hit the notification bell and turn notifications to all. We're not going to spam your YouTube. You're going to see 2 pieces of recorded content and a live. That's it. So just saying, you should do that so that you get to watch the content. It helps the channel grow. All right. Let's see. Chris Steele, what is up, buddy? Fence fam is right. Chris, good to see you guys. Chris is really active on the Facebook groups, the fencing related Facebook groups. You should check that out. I met Chris 2 years ago now, I guess, at it might not have been the first Fence Academy or Mr. Fence Academy summit, but it was the first one I'd gone to. Met Chris there. Really neat story. We should have Chris on. We should talk about his story. I think it is really interesting. Check out Chris on Facebook. Kyle's watching from YouTube. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that a lot. Martin says over here we have sites with 500 plus plots. They want you on site every day plowing through as many as possible. Get tired of it, to be honest. I would imagine so. I mean, we have some pretty significant development subdivisions here, but typically fence goes in last because they don't. Now, I really wish. We do this occasionally, and it works super well to where we go in prior to final grade and set the posts, and we leave them tall because no one knows where grade's going to be until they actually do it. They grade the yard out, then they lay the irrigation inside the fence. We're not cutting irrigation lines. They don't have to move irrigation heads because they know exactly where this fence is going. We leave them gate openings so where they can bring it straight through. They can bring equipment in. Super well. This thing works. Now, for scheduling, it's a little bit more scheduling intensive because typically we would set posts on Mondays and Tuesdays, finish them that week on Thursdays and Fridays. Obviously, they're not going to get the site graded and irrigation in 2 days. It's going to be several weeks before that's done. But with the right planning, the builder knows roughly on a timeline when this stuff's going to go in. Like that a lot, like that plan a lot. But we don't typically see whole neighborhood of fencing going. And that might be my region. Like that might be my experience. Maybe in other parts of the United States, building out a whole subdivision worth of fence, maybe that's normal. I'm not sure. For us, it's fairly abnormal. And I could absolutely see how that would get tiring. And the nice thing that when we're bringing on new team members onto one of the fencing crews, what we say is, like, your scenery changes every day. Like, there's never a standard day. There's never 2 days that are alike, because you're always in a different yard, or if you're in the same yard, you're doing different work, right? One day you're there setting a post. 2 days later, you're there building a fence. So scenery always changes. I can see if you're in one subdivision for 500 houses, I mean, you'd be there for a while. I could see that scenery. I could see that getting old. Absolutely see where you're coming from. Martin, thank you for stopping in. I mean, dude, you're already into your afternoon, early evening, so I appreciate you stopping by for sure. Look forward to seeing you later, sir. All right, guys. Let me know how your week's gone. Let me know how you guys are. You guys seeing lumber prices come down? This email has my wheels turning. Like, maybe this is real. I think they're probably got a few lumber things on sale. They're wanting you to come in, check those things out, and then they'll sell you the expensive stuff. Maybe. Just a guess. But I hope so, because here locally, treated pine 2x4s are more expensive than cedar 2x4s, which is absurd, right? Typically, cedar is about a 20% premium. But no, here, so even if we were going to use treated pine, so sometimes we'll do like a steel post with treated pine rails and pickets. All right. That's how you want to build. That's how we'll build it. But now we're upgrading to cedar 2x4s because, like I said, they're less expensive. But maybe it's coming down. I don't know. Are you guys seeing lumber prices in your market come down? Or is this big box store just wanting to drive traffic? I think that's probably the answer. You know what? Let's look. We got some time. Let me pull up our local store that this email came from. They have an app. I don't think that narrows it down any. I don't know. It probably doesn't matter if I say who it was, but whatever. All right. 2x4x8, just because that's the number I know in my head. Yeah. Okay. So it has. So this is listing a 2x4x8. Now, all right. So it's number 2 because that's just what's always in stock. Number 2 prime. At $588 a board. So that has actually come down quite a lot, because these. Let me check. Let me tell you guys what they were. Let's see. At this place. So. Because they send us monthly pricing. Let's see what it was. The last one was 2x4x8 treated pine top choice number 2 prime. About $10, $10.02. Which is why that's nuts, right? So here 2x4x8 cedar's right around $9.80. So not a huge difference, but it's cheaper, which is bizarre. So okay, so $9.52. Now this was, when was this? This was about a month ago. Month and a week. 5 weeks. So $9.52. So let's see. They are now $5.88. So the price of lumber is dropping, at least at this particular store. So we'll see. Let me check another home store just to see. So boys and girls, maybe lumber is coming down. Try the other big box store in town. Actually, there's 3. We've got a Lowe's, a Home Depot, and a Menards here. We should be so lucky. 2x4x8. Treated pine, huh? I'm sure this is great content. You guys, apologize for this, but if we're figuring out that lumber prices are coming down, maybe this is riveting content. Pressure treated lumber 2x4x8. That's what we want. Well, this place isn't. This place want 2x4 by 4. I don't even know why. I don't know. Pressure premium ground contact pressure treated lumber for 3 of them is $48. What in tarnation are they trying to sell? That's not what we're looking for though. 2x4x8 poplar. Oh, that's not what we want. $75. This site is particularly hard to look at. I don't know. Like it's showing me hardwood. I literally searched 2x4x8 pressure treated pine. I'm getting all this nonsense. All right, here we go. Okay. 2x4x8, number 2, which is what we're looking at, $588. Is that literally the same price? It is literally the same price as the other place. I think we could tell it's Lowe's and Home Depot. I feel like I could just tell you guys that. I don't think no one's going to get mad. You can literally go on the apps right now, like I'm doing, and look up this pricing. They are exactly to the penny the same price, $5.88. Like, all right, let's talk about collusion for a second. So, fence people have gotten in trouble in the past. Fencing professionals have gotten in trouble in the past, like felony, like federal trouble in the past for collusion. Now, they were absolutely doing it to profit and do it, like they weren't innocent in this. But every time we go to a fence meeting, every time more than like 3 fence people get together, they say you're supposed to sign this, this anti-collusion policy. We're not going to talk about pricing. We're not going to talk about adjusting price. We're not going to talk about price at all. And then in the Facebook groups, you see guys. This is a whole different conversation, but you see guys saying, "Hey, what's the price for a 6-foot? What should I charge for 6-foot privacy fence?" I don't know because I don't know your numbers. Like my price shouldn't be your price because maybe I do things more efficiently. Maybe we buy them in massive bulk and we can do it for less per foot than you could. And if you charge what I charge, you go out of business. Maybe not a good conversation to have anyway. But we shut those conversations down though because that could be so in the Sherman Act, which is kind of the collusion antitrust act, one of the acts. Price comparison is one of the tenets, one of the things they look for when determining if this is anti-competitive nature. Price comparison is quite literally you saying, well, I charge $1 million. And I say, well, that's interesting because I charge $1.5 million. And in the back of your mind, you go, wonder if I could charge $1.4 million and get away with it, right? I mean, that's kind of human nature to think that way, I believe. So price comparison is one of the tenets in the Sherman Act for determining collusion and antitrust behavior. One of the arguments I hear, which is valid, is, well, Joe, every gas station in town tells all the other gas stations in town what they're charging because they put it up on a sign. Yeah, I get it. Same thing with this, right? So Lowe's puts up, hey, we're charging $5.88 for a 2x4x8 pressure treated pine, pressure treated pine. And then maybe Home Depot sees that and goes, oh, well, I suppose we should charge $2.88 or $5.88. How is that not collusion and price comparison? Answer is, I don't know. We should refer to a lawyer for that, actually. Maybe they would know. I don't know. But what I'm saying is I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. This seems like collusion though, right? Like if I put my prices out there and you see the price and then you change yours to match mine, that's what they're trying to get away from with the anti-monopoly, anti-collusion, all this nonsense. So anyway, I don't know what the difference is between them putting their prices on their website and us talking about price in Facebook groups. I don't know what the difference there is. However, I'm also not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice. I'm a fence guy with a YouTube channel. So, anyway, maybe moral of the story, folks, at least here locally, Southwest Missouri, lumber is coming down, almost half price. It went from $10 and change to whatever, what did we say, $5.88. Almost half price lumber, which makes you wonder, makes you wonder, right? So because these companies were saying, and not just Lowe's and Home Depot, it's box stores everywhere, right? We're saying, well, it takes us so long to get these boards in, right? Like it takes months and months to get boards in. Interesting. Because then when you drive around behind the store, well, so for us, Home Depot backs up to an interstate. So you drive past the store all the time, the back of the store. They have lumber stacked to the sky, like literally as tall as they could possibly stack it without it being structurally unsound, is how far this stuff is stacked to the sky. So you're telling me that it took months. They bought these things months ago and then they sat on them. Now, a month ago, they're charging $10 and change. Well, you can't tell me they got a new batch of boards in, right, that are now magically half price. So were they sitting there? So if the difference is, I don't know, if the difference is 45 cents a board, or not $4 and change a board, right? So were they just profiting that $4 and change? Me says probably, right? So it's an interesting thought to have. The Dirt Rider says, what's the best boring beetle killer from the box stores? Got a 6-year-old fence. I just redid the post, but the boards are still okay. But it did notice some beetle larvae. I have no idea. In our market, we don't have boring beetles. No idea. I really don't. I know Sand Seal Experts is actually putting out, or they have out, a citronella additive that they can add to the stain prior to purchase, or you can buy the additive after purchase and mix in while you're mixing the stain anyway. That could possibly be a solution. Answer is, I don't know. I really don't. We don't deal with boring beetles. We really don't. We're fortunate in that we don't have a lot of these like carpenter bees. We don't have those. Those aren't really a thing. We don't have a lot of this stuff. We don't have woodpeckers because we don't apparently have these beetles that bore into stuff and then woodpeckers try to get them. I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't help you. I've never used the product. I don't have knowledge of the product. Just, we don't have them in our area. I know that doesn't help you, and I apologize, but hopefully that's better than me making up an answer. Kyle says, where I'm at here in Oregon, the mills can't keep up with the loggers in the woods. That's interesting. So the loggers, there's more logs coming. What this sounds like is more logs coming in than the mills can handle, which is good because forever the mills said that they couldn't get logs. That was one of the reasons for the shortage and the resulting price increase and all that nonsense was they were saying, hey, we just can't get lumber and we can't get it milled. So it's interesting that now the loggers have caught up and surpassed the mill's production. Maybe price reductions are here to stay. I mean, I say that half-heartedly. I doubt it. Who knows? In Kennewick, Washington, is still going up weekly. Interesting. So, there was a fence guy here in our market that was buying treated pine 2x4s and 4x4 8s and 10s and 12s for 2x4s and driving them. He was driving them up to Washington. I don't know where in Washington, but he was driving them up towards you guys in Washington and selling them for twice what he bought them here. Because he said he was loading up to go to Washington. So where are you going to Washington for? Like from here, that's a significant drive. He goes, I'm going to buy a bunch of lumber here and sell it up there. How could you possibly make money there? I mean, it's a 2 to 3 day drive, depending on how hard you want to get after it. And the fuel, and there's the opportunity cost of you not being here, right? He said, well, I'll double my money. So if I spend $20,000 on a truckload of lumber, I can drive it up to Washington and I can sell it for 40 and, $20,000 for a couple days work seems like a good idea, which I said, yes, it does. And if we had any extra trailers or trucks, we would probably be doing the same thing also. So it's interesting to see that it's going up weekly there. Like I said, it's dropped in the last month based on those emails. The email was priced from about 5 weeks ago, $10 and change down to $5.88. So maybe it's going to drop for you guys sometime soon, or maybe not. If not, let me know and we'll send a truck of lumber up your way. Roger says, Joe, I'm cleaning out the garage, moving forward with something. Wife is on board, and I am dropping the scaredy cat. Won't give away too much just yet. However, this is the Fence Expert channel with a wink. And I'm not going to say too much about the email that we talked about, but good on you. Good on you. Let me know if I can help. Always happy to help. Yeah. Chris, this comment was me asking in that pile of lumber if they're pocketing $4 a piece, and he said, "You bet they was." I don't doubt it. I really don't. The shortage is man-made by the lumber yards so they could drive the prices up. You know, I I would have to agree. You know, because so yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly where I read this article, but there was an article during the lumber shortage talking about that it was kind of self-induced in that the logging industry was now this is 2020, right? So the logging industry was somewhat behind because everyone was getting sick, and you know everyone felt that. But a lot of the loggers were saying, "Listen, but we're not shut down. Like we aren't affected by shutdown mandates because we are an essential business. We are allowed to operate even if there is a local shutdown order. We are still allowed to operate because we are an essential business, as they should be." But yet the mills were saying that they couldn't get it and this and that. And then there was a guy. I don't know who it was. If you're watching, I apologize. But it's on Facebook of them driving by a mill, and it was acres of logs and finished product, like literally logs on one side of the building, loads and loads and like I'm talking probably 100 loads of lumber just sitting out in the yard waiting to go out. And it made you wonder, yeah, is this self-induced? Likely so. Likely so. But the thing is, like, here's the thing you got to think of, right? My thinking is stuff like this always comes out, right? Even if it's not today or tomorrow or next week or next year, it's going to come out, right? That you were the one that induced this. And then when I say you, I could mean an entire industry, or, you know, if we're talking about mills or whatnot, you know, in this one, I won't say the name of, but there was a mill, there's a company that bought a lumber company, had a bunch of mills, promptly shut down 4 or 5 of those mills just because they said they weren't producing, you know, they weren't producing profitably. So they shut down 4 or 5 mills. And then 6 months later, the prices go through the roof. Now, this is pre-pandemic, but the prices go through the roof. And they say, well, we can't keep up with production. Our capacity, we just don't have the capacity to keep up with market demand. Well, no kidding. Well, when you shut down half of your mills, that's probably going to happen. Like, no one saw that coming. No one said, hey, we're going to reduce our production capacity by half. I wonder if this will negatively affect the market. Of course not. They cut out half of their expense, half of their overhead. And now they're getting more for the same product they were making. Like, it's nonsense. But from a business perspective, I get it. You know, if you've got a market that's willing to pay for your product, then that is the correct price for that product, regardless of what the price is. You know, and I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things, like, I respect them as a business person, but as the guy buying this stuff, I don't like it, right? Like, you can produce it less expensively, right? It absolutely could be less. You could absolutely increase your capacity, but you chose to shut down mills to remain profitable and this and that. Okay. But then don't tell me that the reason for a price increase 6 months later is because you don't have capacity. You absolutely caused that capacity shortage. But, you know, and that's part of a bigger conversation. But gotta love the Pacific Northwest. Absolutely. I only deal with exciting beetles, not those boring beetles. There's a dad joke in there somewhere, but we don't have beetles at all. Not even the exciting ones, Roger. We are in a beetle shortage here in the Midwest, and I think that's okay. I think I'm okay with that. You guys, whoever you guys are that have beetles, you just keep them. 4x4x8 number 2 is $18 right now. Let me see. All right, riveting content coming in again, but let's search these sites for 4x4x8 treated number 2. All right, 4x4x8 treated lumber. How much did you say? $18. So this is showing several options. 4x4x8, 4x4 number 2. Let me select 8-foot length. You said $18, $15.68 here. Plus you got some tax, so let's see what that would be. $15.68. 8.6%. 1568. Welcome to an episode of Joe Does Math on his calculator. 8.6%. So 17 and change, 1703 when you round up. So, I mean, it's the same ballpark, roughly. But let's look at that email and see if they sent us what 4x4s were. Well, they heard me talking about them. There it is. Okay. Let's see what I don't know if they priced me 4x4s because typically we prefer the Postmaster. No, here it is. So 5 weeks ago, 4x4x8 treated number 2 grade square was $7.11. So those have actually, good Lord. So those have doubled. Like I said, 1568 right now. 5 weeks ago, 4x4x8 number 2. Yeah. 5 weeks ago is $7.11. So maybe the lumber market's not coming down. Maybe it's coming down selectively, apparently. 2x4s are half price almost, but 4x4s are double the price. There's someone in an accounting room somewhere that said, all right, guys, hear me out. We sell 2x4s really cheap. Like I'm talking half price. But where we get them is a 4x4s because you can't put 2x4s up if you don't have 4x4s. Somebody else said, you're a genius. Make it happen. So I don't know. That's how I picture that conversation going. Good Lord. 4x4x8 premium S4S cedar lumber. So clear $49.88. My brain is having trouble. You could buy a steel Postmaster Post for less than that. Like, depending on where you buy it, $10 less than that a post. That's just nonsense. Like, who would do that? Why? I mean, unless a fence style, there are fence styles that leave the post exposed, so they are an aesthetic part of the fence. I could see having to use those, but if you're doing just a standard privacy or shadow box fence, no reason to spend anything more than what a steel post is, because a steel post will outlive a 4x4. I don't care what the quality is; it will outlive a cedar post. I mean, and I don't even think it's close. I mean, barring like, an asteroid falling on it or something like that. Man, that's crazy. So welcome to the lumber price comparison show. So I guess the moral of the story is, come get your 2x4s in Missouri and go get, I don't know where you're going to get your 4x4s because it sounds like they're expensive everywhere. Truth Seeker, good morning from Middle Tennessee. Good morning, Truth Seeker. All right, guys, we are 30 minutes away from the new video. I'm doing at noon. I'm showing this to you guys. I'm going to keep this on the back of my mind. At 12 o'clock, we were playing. I've even got it queued up. You can't see it, but I've got queued up right down there. If you're sitting in this seat, you could see it right now. But, yep, we got 30 minutes until we do that. So if you guys got a question, drop it in the comments below. We talked a little bit about visiting Chris and his team over at Kasurk. Like those guys a lot. We got to visit their fence installation side too, the Heritage Fence. Great operation. Absolutely fantastic operation. It was interesting. I always like visiting other fence companies to see how their yards are in our offices, how their operations are laid out. Let's say that. Because like it seems like every place I go, I take like a little tidbit. I'm like, oh, take a picture of that. I'm going to send that to the team. We need to reorganize this thing this way, right? Or talking about, talking with Chris, like I really see in the next 6 months us bringing on a full-time bookkeeper. That's what I do, and I kind of enjoy it. It's kind of a nice quiet time activity. Like I just shut my door, no one interrupts me because I'm like, hey, reconciling bank accounts. You don't want to interrupt me, I promise. Or entering bills so that we can pay bills. But had a nice conversation with Chris just about, and this is something I talk about. So this is something I talk about, right? If you can hire out the task for less than what your value is to the company, right? So establish your value, and whatever it is, like randomly, say it's $200 an hour or something. I don't know what it is, but say your value is at $200 an hour. Can you hire that task out for less than $200 an hour and feel assured that it would be done at, say, 80% proficiency, 75% proficiency maybe? And if so, then you should hire it out. Yeah, if it makes sense, right? So if you have enough work for them to take on at least a part-time, so at least 20 to 30 hours a week, you should pass it off. And I talk about that a lot, right? And I talk about putting scaling and putting people. That's just something I hadn't even like sat and really considered, because that's something I do, and I kind of enjoy it. I don't enjoy doing math, but I enjoy just entering in numbers and seeing how it affects the P&L and the balance sheet and the statement of cash flow. Like I think that's interesting. But also it's a conversation of velocity, right? So it makes us a slower company because I am now spending my time, whether it's, a couple hours a week or whatever it is, which is actually more than it's probably, it's more than a couple hours. Anyway, whatever that time is, if it's 20 hours a week that I'm spending on this, then I'm spending that 20 hours not doing something that generates revenue, right? Now, accounts receivable, it's not really generating revenue, but it is collecting revenue. It is a component of revenue. But if we could hire someone for less than what I put my value worth to the company, and they can do it at 75% efficiency, we should hire them. I have a feeling, I know me, we could find someone that probably exceeds 75% efficiency of how I do it. I would say it's probably 100 and some odd percent efficiency of how I do it. So anyway, great conversation with Chris, because I saw his layout and what they're going through, bringing on, a bookkeeper, it kind of clicked. So I enjoy doing that. I'd like to do this more. I always say, once we get a few things ironed out and I can take some time away from the company, but I would like to visit more of you. I would like to visit you guys and see your operations. I've talked to some guys at FinSec about doing this thing exactly and take the show on the road, right? So Braden and I would travel to a fence company and just talk about operations and see if I could bring value to them, and see if we could bring value back to our company just in seeing how someone's yard is laid out, or how their office processes through invoices or through whatever. Operationally, if we can improve something in our business by seeing how someone else does it, which is kind of like the goal of this show, right? Is to try to help you guys with your businesses by sharing our experience and sharing how we do things. And I've said it a lot, and I'll say it again. I'm not telling you this is the only way to do the thing. I'm just telling you this is how we found success with it. Is there a better way? Probably. We just haven't found it yet. And when we do find it, we'll share it with you, right? And this is kind of the conversation we're having about software. If you guys follow Dan Blanc, this guy is just on the cutting edge of software. Like, he's ahead of the cutting edge of software, figuring it out and sharing that with everyone else. Same kind of thing, right? If we can figure out something operationally or something procedurally that can improve your business, I want to find it out, because I'd like to apply it to mine, but then also share it with you guys, share the results. Hey, we found the thing. It improved our efficiency by X. You should probably consider it for your company, because it might improve your efficiency. That idea. I want to come see you guys. Whoever you guys might be. I'd like to see your guys' yards and operations for sure. Duro said Postmaster 7.5 foot, $38.98. Well, that's wild. Well, and actually, we haven't bought any. We bought a fair, and we bought a couple thousand of these things about 6 months ago for a price that was less than that. It was, I'd have to go look at QuickBooks and figure out exactly, but I want to say they were $29 and change for an 8-footer. Well, I guess it depends where you're buying them from too. So Lowe's has been known to sell 7.5 footers. Here's why: because you can ship 7.5 foot post far cheaper than 8 foot, because 8 foot 0 inches is the cutoff that goes from ground to freight. Typically, if we're talking about a UPS or a FedEx, 8 foot is the thing. 8 foot 0 inches. Well, you guys know these posts are 8 foot. Well, you're going to have to put them in some sort of container. It's usually a cardboard box or something, because those edges get sharp and they can't cut anything around them, or else they have to be handled as hazardous and dangerous material, because they could damage other freight. They don't want that. Anyway, so it's always more than 8 foot. It's 8 foot and an inch, or it's 8 foot and 2 inches, whatever it is. So anyway, say that to say 7.5 foot. You see these in stores, you see them available more often because they can ship them cheaper. But if it's 7.5, it's 7 foot 6 inches. With packaging, maybe it's 7 foot 8 inches. No problem. Still under 8 inches, you can still ship. That's why you see other posts that are similar to the Postmaster post that have like a 6-inch bolt-on flange that goes on the top. The ones I've seen were when they get shipped to you, they're upside down and bolted on. So these things are 7.5 feet, but you flip around the 6-inch flange, and they show it as the 2x4 going on top because it really helps, the structural stability. Okay, it might, but they can also ship it shorter than 8 foot. So, it might be one of those unintended benefits. They're trying to figure out shipping. How can we ship these things more reasonably than 8 foot? Like, how can we make them 7 foot 6, but they work like 8 foot posts? Somebody's like, I don't know. What if we just cut off the top 6 inches and turn it around, and then we tell them it's for structural stability? I like it. Send them. That's what Sean would say. Send it, right? I don't know. Anyway, so that's why 7.5 foot posts. But 7.5 foot posts, even with like a 6-inch reveal, you could only put those things 2 foot deep. Well, what if the soil conditions require that if it's really soft soil, what happens if they need to be more than 2 foot deep? What if they need to be the ASTM 30-inch deep, right? What if 7.5 is absolute minimum. That's if everything goes perfect. A lot of times, if we've got terrain, we'll leave the post tall. So like we'll use a 10-foot post, leave it tall, and then cut it in to where the top line stays nice and straight. But and we fill it, or the customer fills in. So we're doing one right now. It's actually a chain link fence, but 8 foot tall. The grade was not flat, right? They had high points, they had low points, but they said we want to keep the top straight. We'll bring in fill, we'll bring in rock, we'll bring whatever we need to bring in. We'll handle that. You just keep the top straight. That's what we want. All right. So it's an 8 foot fence, 3 foot in the ground, 19 11. So we use 12.5 foot posts, right? So and then we cut them off at wherever. Anyway, I say all that to say 7.5 inches is playing with fire, right? If it goes perfectly, it could work, but anyway, we prefer the 8 foot posts. What is up, Divine Fence? Hello, Joe and Fence fam. Hope all are having a great weekend. And my Fence Life, great channel. Absolutely agree. My Fence Life. So check them out they're on YouTube as well. I watch them on Facebook, so that's why I think of them as Facebook. They also have a podcast now. Dan is really like getting this podcast thing going for the fence industry. It used to be his intro was, and it was true, he had the first and only podcast for the fencing industry. Well, now he's like whipping everyone into a frenzy on podcasts. And it makes sense. I don't say that negative. I say that positively. I think, 10 years from now, when podcast is the norm for the fencing industry, I think we'll have Dan Wheeler to thank for that, because he's the one that's, whether it's phone conversations or whether it's at Fence Tech or whatever, he's the guy that's pushing the industry towards podcasts. I mean, these shows are great. I love doing these. I prefer video content because I think it's easier to form a connection with the audience this way. But Dan's point is right. He's like, well, some people don't consume content that way. Some people want the audio only experience. And I got to thinking about it. And that made sense because there's a lot of content I consume as audio only on my drive into work and back home. Right. I'll turn on the way in today. We listened to 3 podcasts, like little 10, 12 minute podcasts on the way into work today. So anyway, definitely made sense. All that to say, I don't know how we got there. Well, my Fence Life. So Facebook, YouTube, podcast, check them out. They're up to good stuff over there. All right, guys, we are 16 minutes away from the unveiling of episode 1 of Week in the Life. I almost called it something completely different that no one would have understood what I said. It doesn't even make sense. I don't, like, as soon as I thought it, I was like, my brain went, that's not it. You should check with Braden on what we're calling this. But anyway. I think it went, I don't even really remember what I thought, but it was like, it was a really long, it was like a description of it. Like a behind the scenes look of the Ozark fence, or it was something, I don't know, not what we're calling it. I shouldn't even say it because that leads to confusion. All right, guys, drop some comments below. Let's talk about it. Next event coming up is the TChem training event, TCHEM, TChem training event in North Carolina. So that's coming up in July. You'll see more information about that as we get closer to it. We'll likely talk about it here on the show. Super excited for this trip. A couple reasons. It's a little bit longer trip. So the Kasurik trip, we had to make it because usually I like to tack on an extra day if I'm going somewhere I've never been, such as Philadelphia. I like to try to tack on a day at the end of that trip just to go to explore and see the city, because you never know when you're going to be there with enough time to go see the city, right? Especially a city like Philadelphia that has so much history. Like, I think you could spend days going through the history of Philadelphia. But the problem is it was Mother's Day weekend, and Taylor deserves all the showering of attention and gifts because she puts up with not only me, but my children who act like me, right? So she has to put up with 3 miniature versions of me, and that is cause for thanks alone. It really is. So we were talking about weekends. This was like the only weekend or the only Friday that would work for the group of people that were making the trip over for it. And so anyway, which I have a feeling this is the reason that Caleb and Michael left Friday evening, was so that they could be home even with even more time for Mother's Day weekend. And that's smart. Good on you, gentlemen, for thinking about that. But I say all that to say, typically I like to make these longer trips. This was a really short trip. I flew up Thursday. We did the event Friday, flew back Saturday. It was a whirlwind. The TChem event, we're adding on an extra day because, so I was born in a town called Cary, North Carolina. Well, technically I was born in Raleigh, which is the bigger city, right? But I lived in Cary for the first 12 years of my life, 11 and a half years of my life, something like that. But when we moved, I've never been back. Never had the opportunity. I was never in that part of the country with enough time to where I could never been back to the home. Like, literally, the last memory of me in the U-Haul pulling out of that place is the last time I've seen that house. Now, okay, maybe that's not true. I have seen it on Google Street View, okay? But physically, last time I've seen that house. This time for the TChem event, Braden's coming with. We're going to obviously document the event, just because that's going to be part of the week in the life, right? So, but we're also renting a car. Typically, I just Uber around. Great thing about today's day and age is you can just Uber or Lyft wherever you want to go. But not for this. We're renting a car and we're driving. So the event is, I think it's about 45 minutes away from Cary. We're going to rent a car. We're going to drive down, see the old place. I'm sure, like, from their perspective, that won't be creepy at all, seeing some random guy dressed all in orange with another guy in the passenger seat with a video camera filming him looking at this house. Like that probably won't be weird at all for them. But I think it'll make for some interesting content for you guys, because, like, I've got some fun stories about this. So they built a mall behind this house, right, or behind this subdivision, and to keep noise out, or noise out of the neighborhood from the mall, they built like this massive berm. Like, it is, well, and understand I was 10 when this thing went up. So for me, like, it seems like it's 20 foot tall. And then it had a 6-foot fence on top of it that they planted a bunch of evergreen trees in front of. Every boy's dream, right? Like, it was a hill, so you had all sort of vantage points, and then you could hide in the trees, and there was bushes to, like, play in. Like, we played commandos every day on this thing. But if you climb that fence and they caught you, they would come get you, the security, and they would put you in their vehicle and drive you around back to your house, and they would have to talk to your parents about trespassing. It was criminal trespass to climb that fence and come into the mall. Why? Right? Like, maybe to keep troublemakers out. But for me and my friends, like, we were wanting to go over to the candy store. And, like, it was probably a mile or more to go down to the subdivision entrance, over to the mall, back down to the mall to get to the candy store. Or you could wait for the security car to go by, and once they go by, it's like 10 or 15 minutes till they come back around, usually. Now, at 10, we didn't really understand the concept of like security cameras. So we would wait for the car to go by and turn the corner and jump the fence and slide down. The berm is pretty steep. Slide down the berm and jet into this mall, like to try to beat security. And most of the time it worked. Sometimes it didn't. And we got picked up and we'd have to be taken back to the house. And then, of course, our moms didn't know any of this was going on. They thought we were playing commandos over on the berm. And, to a mom, this is kind of nightmare scenario that we were actually climbing this thing, sliding down, crossing traffic, mall traffic. Anyway, so we were forbidden to go to this mall. Well, okay, so we're forbidden from that mall. But just a little bit further in the opposite direction was like, it was a shopping complex. It was all outdoor shopping complex, but in it was, what was it? It was called Exhilarama. I remember this. I don't even know if it's a chain. I don't know if it's still around. It was called Exhilarama. And they had the first ever virtual reality headset game. Cutting edge stuff here, right? So one day we decided, well, it's not that far when we go by the car, right? It's like a couple minutes to get there. We're going to get on our bikes. Now, this is probably right before I left. So I was around 11, maybe. We were older. We had mountain bikes with gear selection. That tells you how old we were, because when you were a kid, you were not allowed to have those. You had, the Huffies that had just no gears, nothing. But when you got to 10 or 11, you got the mountain bike. Anyway, so we went on an adventure over to this complex. Well, the problem was you had to go over an interstate, like a bridge, like a overpass on an interstate. And apparently you also had to drive like down the shoulder of a highway over the interstate. It was kind of a big deal, apparently. Not to us. Like to us, it was an adventure, right? Like to these kids, well, we get over there and a police officer sees us. He probably had been following us over the interstate and all that. Well, he called our parents, and our moms blew their lid because we were on the side of a highway, over and over, interstate overpass to get to this Exhilarama. Anyway, I'm going to share those stories with you guys with the video. So, because like for me, like this was still my 10-year-old mind. Actually, I should probably go on Google Earth and figure out like how far of a drive it was. But the way our moms reacted, it was a big deal. Like it was, and this is back in the age where like you were allowed to go and play all day. You know what I mean? It was still the time of come home in time for dinner, sort of thing. Like you were not supposed to be in the house, because when you're in the house, you're in your mom's way. So you just went out and had adventures all day, and then you came back in time for dinner. But so still in that day and age, this was a big deal, right? So anyway, I'll share that with you guys when we go to the North Carolina TChem training event. All right, 7 minutes. I'm watching the time. Divine said, Sean King's video update on dry pack. Saw that dry pack test versus wet set and driven was awesome and very informative on how whichever method you use, the post will fail before the method if installed correctly. Absolutely. So he shot this content live during the Super Bowl, halftime of the Super Bowl. But I did see, what did I see? I saw it on his story, on his face. I saw it this morning as I was waking up, that he had actually, looks like, produced that content a little bit. Which I'm glad he's doing that. He's putting real, so he did a pull test on is one stronger than the other in regards to pull strength? Is one staying the ground longer than the other? And it was interesting to see that not really. I mean, if installed correctly, asterisk, one will last just as long as the other. Now, there's a lot of people that are assuming dry pack means you dump in dry quickcrete or Saccrete, whatever you're using, and tamp on it and then move on to the next post. Not at all right. That is not at all the process, right? So we're talking about compaction. So typically you're using like a concrete compaction tool or a vibratory tool attached to like a cordless drill, not a cordless drill, but what looks like, anyway, a vibration tool that will actually compact that. Or you can use a rock bar to compact layer by layer by layer as you add to it. So not quite what people are saying it is, with just you dump in dry and you tamp it and move on. That method will absolutely fail. Like it just, there's nothing going for it. But with compaction, that's a different story altogether. So I'm glad Sean's doing this to bring at least the discussion to the forefront that there are other ways out there. There are other methods. I mean, the ag guys will talk to you about driven post all day long. I mean, that's their life. That's what they know, that a driven post is just as strong or maybe more strong than a set post. Now, here's the conversation about, is it stronger than a set post? Because I need to find this article. There was an article, it's probably been a year or so ago that I found it. I'm sure we can find it again. Anyway, that so talking about when you're drilling these holes, like the auger never goes straight, right? It wobbles if it hits a rock, or if it wobbles a little bit. Well, it is decompacting, uncompacting. I don't know. The soil around the hole, right? Because the auger's got teeth that point out just to get all the soil it can, but it's loosening the soil around this post. So when you pour in concrete, the concrete doesn't have like a natural expansion agent, right? Now, gravity will bring it into the void and all that. But if the soil around the post is loose because the auger was drilling that hole, is it as strong as a driven post? Now, with the driven post, if it's a solid post, so say, an 8-inch round or something like that, this post is actually going to force that ground out. It's got to make room for this post to come in. So it's actually adding compaction to the ground around the post. There's a decent conversation in that possibly driven posts are more secure than a wet or dry set. Any post that's used in auger. I think it's probably something worth testing, right? I think this is a conversation worth having. Are driven posts stronger than a wet or dry set? I don't know. I mean, so in our area, driving isn't necessarily an option. Now, I absolutely understand there are some awesome machines in the market. Luke's Evo machines, wildly awesome. But we don't do a lot of ag fence. So us having one of those machines in a residential setting, not as practical, right? So we got the post drivers, actually from SWI, Mark's outfit. We got the post drivers with the Postmaster adapter, and we tried driving a bunch. Didn't necessarily work. I had several rent houses across town that we needed to put new fence around anyway. Didn't work. Now, some of them worked, right? But it was roughly half and half on each yard. So it's not like one house worked while the other didn't. It was 10 out of the 20, 10 out of 18 posts worked, but we still had to drill and set other posts on the property. And at that point, it didn't make sense for us to try to invest in more driving equipment when we still had to have the digging equipment on the truck. We'd still have to set some of these posts. If you're going to have to set them, more than, I don't know, if you have to set posts at all, I don't know that it makes sense to kind of mix and match your procedures. Because again, we're talking about efficiencies, right? We're talking about having an efficient process. When they're having to stop the process and pull off the digging machine to dig some of the holes, but not other holes, it makes sense just to set them all. In my opinion, could be wrong, probably am, but for our process, it makes most sense to drill the holes. For guys that drive posts, though, I think it would be interesting to test this theory on, are driven posts stronger than set posts because they are actually adding compaction to the soil around the post, whereas when drilling holes, you actually lower the compaction in the dirt, the ground, soil around these posts. I think it'd be an interesting conversation to have. Speaking of UK audience, Project Mail Music says, "Hey, Joe, sorry I'm late. Just finished doing an interview." No problem at all. You're actually just in time to see the episode 1, first ever Week in the Life. Yeah, is that what we're calling? Week in the Life video. I will get this. You guys watch. By next time we do this, I want to look at Braden like half of the time because I will remember that more than what I remember right now. Project Mail Music, so happy to see you. All right. Is it time? It's like 11:59. I'm going to go ahead and call it. So because I've been like chomping at the bit to show you guys this. I am so stinking excited. All right. Here we go. Oh, did we do? Okay. So the audio should work too. Let me know Where's my mouse? Let me know if you guys do not hear this. What's up, everybody? Joe Everest, the fence expert, and we're ripping this floor up. Can't hear it? Okay. I was like, all right, so here we are outside the building where our building wastewater meets the city's wastewater. The audio's delayed. All right. So play it a little bit more. All right. So this is the sewer pipe that's coming out. Now, listen, we have had more plumbing issues in this place in the last month than we ever have. But so we started off. So before we had started this series, we had to replace our incoming water line. So we were leaking water. So we were leaking something like 1,300 gallons an hour of water from our incoming water supply. It was a galvanized pipe that was bringing water into the building. It rusted and started leaking water. Like I said, 1,300 gallons an hour or something. Like, it was wildly expensive water bill that month. But so we had to cut up the asphalt in front of the office. We had to trench in new water supply. We had to cut a hole in Sarah's office floor so that we could get to the water supply. We had to send 2 guys with shovels in there because there wasn't enough room for someone to crawl in there and put in the new water pipe. Anyway, we get that done, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later, our sewer collapses, which is where this video picks up. When the plumbers are out trying to figure out what was going on with the system, they realized the blockage was literally right here, 1 foot 9 inches beneath us. So the plan is we're going to cut all of this concrete out. We're going to excavate down 1 foot 9 inches to expose that clay tile. We're going to cut it and then replace everything with nice new clean PVC. Which is like every business owner's nightmare. Like, you're going to cut perfectly good concrete out of our warehouse, and we also had to shut down that part of the warehouse. Like, you see the black plastic up against the, to cover up the fittings because this makes a mess. It has to. Yeah, it was. And in my mind, I was like, what do you think it's going to cost to hire a company to come cut and then have the plumbers excavate? And yeah, I'll give you guys a ballpark of what this thing costs at the end. In years past, the facilities maintenance was much easier. We were in 1,400 square feet. We had 1 toilet, 1 sink, 1 hose bib. The plumbing layout was much more straightforward. Fast forward to today, we've got 15,500 square feet. We've got 4 toilets, 6 or 7 sinks, 2 hose bibs. There's a lot of water moving through this building, which means the facility maintenance is much more complex. There's more problems with it. We learned that this week when the sewer collapsed. So I'll tell you how we found out the sewer collapsed was one of our guys was using one of the front bathrooms. So the bathrooms in the front office. Now we call it the front bathroom because all the sewer flows to the back. So we've got an alley that comes behind the building. So he used that toilet and then first flushed it. He goes, hey, so first I know about this. He comes in my office and says, hey, I flushed the toilet. Water came up the sink. Now it's clean water, so I don't know if it's a problem, but I just want to let you know. Yeah, water coming up through the sink when you flush the toilet is absolutely a problem, clean or not, right? So that's where this started. So they took the toilet off. They sent a snake through all of our sewer line all the way to the back of the building, which is a fair distance, and figured out that it was collapsed. So our toilets were shut, our bathrooms were shut down probably better part of a week because we figured this out on like a Thursday or a Friday. I think we found the problem on a Thursday. They snaked it Thursday. They came out Friday to do they brought a video camera out. They scoped the whole thing and they figured out exactly where the blockage was. And then that next Monday they started ripping it. Anyway, we were without bathrooms for a week. You don't realize how much a bathroom is utilized until it is shut down. And everyone had to go to the gas station basically. Not basically. That was the closest bathroom to us was a gas station. Anyway, it was a pain. to get a picture of this excavator because it was really cool. You can kind of see it there in the background. Like, it's a tiny little excavator made for just such an occasion, right? For interior work. But it's also electric. It's all electric. So it's not, there's no fumes in the building. There's no any of that. Tiny little thing. I was personally kind of wondering how they were going to get all this up. Now I envision people having to come with like rock bars to pry these things up and then haul them out like this, but also excavate this thing by hand. I didn't think they're going to be able to get a piece of equipment in. Then they dropped this machine off. Like, I kind of want to play on it, but they took the keys with them every night, so I couldn't get to play on. I sat on it, acted like I was running it, but anyway, if I would have asked them, they probably would have let me run it. But I think it's best for both of us that I didn't. New plumbing going in. So part of the problem is, so what he's doing right here is he's measuring the fall. So you always, for reasons that are obvious, you always want your sewer to fall away from the building. You want it at a down angle so that water moves naturally by gravity. Gravity's going to pull all that waste out towards the city sewer. Part of the problem with the old plumbing is there was no fall. Like literally, so I had said in the beginning, it was 1 foot 9 inches below grade, below that concrete to the plumbing. At the back of the building, it was also 1 foot 9 inches. There was zero fall. So gravity was holding the waste in the lines. Like it wasn't helping clear it out. So anyway, what he's doing is measuring the fall to make sure it has the proper amount of fall out. So gravity will go ahead and pull all that out. Now, fair question, and I almost don't want to voice this because like sometimes like when you say stuff, it happens. But that makes me wonder about the rest of the plumbing in this place. Like, does it also have no fall? I don't know. By me saying that, I probably just caused something to happen.
In the middle of the plumbing fiasco, the cutting of the concrete floor and demoing the concrete out of the building, digging it up, redoing the plumbing. You guys saw it. In the middle of all that, we also had to set up for the HBA home show. It's one of our biggest shows of the year.
Because, of course, all this stuff happens like at the same time. Like it couldn't have been a week where we had nothing to do. It was a week where we were really busy.
We're going to put tent here, like just where the tent edges up and comes all the way back to this, because it's going to stick out a little bit. Oh, yeah. Is there another one? Perfect. Okay. So that's what now the HBA home show is one of the biggest shows we do all year. Typically, it's scheduled earlier in the year. Think late February. But if you'll remember, in late February, we had some pandemic concerns floating around. So it got rescheduled to this weekend. Now, in addition to setting up the HBA home show display, we also donate a 4-foot white vinyl picket fence around the HBA's kids zone.
So we decided this is the last year we're using these particular panels, so we're going to go pick up some more for next year's event. But so part of the problem here, though, too, is this was the first home show we'd had since 2020. So it's in February, so it was prior to the pandemic. So we didn't have one last year. We also didn't have lawn and garden shows last year. We didn't have many. We didn't have any shows in 2021, but we had one show in 2020. But so this stuff hadn't been used since we moved buildings, right? So part of the problem was like finding this stuff. Is it all together? Is it not? Like these vinyl panels had been moved 2 or 3 different times. Yeah. Anyway, things were a bit more complicated. So what's interesting, so this is the funny part that's getting ready to happen, but what's interesting is, so this is actually a look at one of the last booths we do like this. At the show, we decided we're going with a smaller booth concept. In the years past, we'd always done, so they're always 8 foot deep. We've done we typically do a 40-foot wide booth. Now at this show, they kind of messed up on the layout. They offset everything one. So they asked us if we could fill another booth, a 5th booth. So this one was actually 50 foot wide. We put it, as you guys saw, we put a canopy up. We filled the space. As you're getting ready to see, it looked really nice. But one of the conclusions we came to, though, is with how social media is progressing, with how this video content is progressing, there's not really the need to show a full display of all of our products in person every year. We've got displays here that show people here on site. So moving forward, it's going to be likely it'll be 2 spaces instead of 4 or 5. It's going to be the canopy. It's going to be it's going to be a pull-up banner like what Caleb and Stand Still Experts have done here. Because, I mean, obviously the visuals on this are great. Like you can make out exactly what's going on in that. So we're going to have some pull-up banners made like that for like residential fence, commercial, some material sales, different aspects of our business that we can take to different shows depending on the crowd we're talking to. So anyway, interesting is this is looking into the last ever booth like this that we're going to build or that we have built.
Eric likes to say things very confident.
Yeah. Let's see. What is it?
Whenever it's a 10 millimeter.
I
If
missed
there's
it.
one thing you need to know about Eric, he will say things very. Eric likes to say things very confident.
Yeah.
Okay, so right before this, Eric had like confidently said, "Oh, that's a 10 millimeter." So anyway, that's kind of the little preface here. So yeah, like I'm going to say, Eric makes very confident statements, whether or not they're true.
Let's see. What is it?
Whenever it's a 10 millimeter.
If there's one thing you need to know about Eric, he will confidently give you an answer, whether it's right or not. So you always kind of have to question the answer he gives you. You got to probe a little bit to see, is this a real answer or what he thinks is the answer? And it'll be a 9 or a 13 or a... We'll see.
So
We'll
it's
see.
always close. Like his answers are always like really close. But yeah, that's why I was like, it'll be a 9 or a 13. It won't be a 10.
Yep. It
Too
fits
small.
perfectly.
Oh.
12, like I said. 13, like I said.
I believe I said 13. And it'll be a 9 or a 13.
Technically, I made 2.
See, I called it.
I also said 13, so we're both right.
He said 13 eventually.
Joe said it was a 10. I said it was a 13 the whole time.
You guys.
Ozark fence sign, let's put it at the edge of the 6 foot. All right, so as you guys have seen, the plumbers did a fantastic job. This is done. And on behalf of everyone here, I can say that we are very relieved to have restrooms once again.
Didn't we have a voiceover there? Where we said, no, maybe I'm misthinking that. Because I said while we're doing setup, the plumbers were hard at work back. Nah, I made that up. Never mind.
Now, there are a few things left here. As you can see, this is still somewhat of an open trench. They got it looked at, they got it filled and all that. We're going to come back, I believe, on Tuesday, fill this up with concrete, slick it off sort of thing. They're outside right now, slicking off the outside, getting the excess dirt moved out of here. But for now, we're pretty much done. Till something else breaks. It's Friday, and it's kickoff day to the HBA Home Show. So most days in the office, I can be found wearing something like this. But for the home show, I think we can do better. All right. I think this is more like it. All right, guys, we're done. Right at the nick of time. We've got this booth about 99% done. We always fiddle with it through the weekend, but it's about as close as it's going to get. And like I said, we're done just in the nick of time because everybody's here. Well, guys, and just like that, the HBA Home Show is a wrap. We had a lot of great conversations with some potential future clients.
So I'll add a little bit to this because this was a month ago. We had a conversation with someone there, and this happens every year where we go through it and we're like, well, we had some good conversations. I don't know if it'll actually pan out and turn into anything. Well, trying to think how much of this we can, I don't know. I won't use names, but so there's someone famous from Springfield whose family still lives here. All right. This was their neighborhood. So they're cutting like we have Kansas Expressway, which is technically like Highway 13, I think. They are making it go further south of town to connect to a different road. Anyway, so now there's going to be a highway directly behind this neighborhood. So this lady from the neighborhood who sits on the HOA board had stopped by. Said, "Hey, do you guys do this fence and this and that?" We said, "We sure do. Could you guys come and look at it? We need 300 or 400 feet of it." Absolutely, we could be there Monday or Tuesday. Well, couldn't find out. We went out. We gave them a bid. They ended up going with 6 foot tall cedar steel post pre-stain, like the Cadillac of fences. And that car, and it, I don't want to say how much. It was a 5-figure fence. That came from this show. So we always go back and forth. Like, do we want to come back? Do we not want to come back? Like, is it worth it? And then we have one job that comes through and pays for the thing completely. All right, well, I guess we will be back next year. Well, with a smaller booth. And that's part of the conversation was, did us having that big booth contribute to that conversation at all? And it didn't, because she came up to the booth. She actually talked to my dad for a little bit. Didn't really look at any of the material, didn't really look through the booth at all. We could have had that same conversation with a 2-wide booth rather than a 5-wide booth without any panel build or anything. So we put a pencil to the scratch pad, did some rough numbers. It costs, when you consider building the booth rental, the time for me and my dad and my sister to be there, the time for the guys to build the booth and tear it down, it's an $8,000 or $9,000 investment. But we could have a 2-wide booth with these banners and a pop-up canopy. You could have one person, 2 hours labor set up. Because that's typically what I do for the community shows. Once the community, like the Chamber of Commerce, the Republic Expo, the Taste of Ozark show, whatever, which I think, guys, talking about like community events, like how to market new businesses, that sort of thing. The community events are not even close. They're far away the best chance to meet people one-on-one. So we love doing those shows, but when we do them, I usually just roll in with a canopy, a couple tables and a table cover and a couple chairs, throw up the canopy, because they're typically one-day shows on a Saturday. So now they'll let you come in Friday night, but they're typically not near, like they're in our surrounding community, but they're not near the office. They're usually a 15, 20-minute drive there and back. Well, I don't really want to spend 40 minutes round trip and an hour to set up, knowing that I'm going to be there the next morning anyway. So I'll show up about an hour early, pop all this up, usually half hour, 45 minutes, run the show. They're usually 5 or 6 hours, drop the canopy, fold it all up, put it in my truck. I'm in and out the same day. We're going to take that same concept to these longer shows, because I think we would still have that sale, that 5-figure sale, even without all that, with all the panels being built, with all the grass being laid, with all that. So anyway, that is what's to come. But I think I had some advice in there also, in that you should absolutely check out these Chamber of Commerce, these community shows, because they are minimal investment. I think a booth rental is usually a couple $100. You don't have to have the canopy. You don't have to have table covers. They provide tables and chairs typically, but it lets you connect with people in that community, and they remember you as being part of that community, even if your business isn't in that community. Like, it could be in a neighboring community. They will think of you when they think of, supporting local businesses. And at least for us, none of our competitors show up to these. We are literally the fence contractor at the smaller community shows. Now, these big shows, I mean, there's 4 main competitors here in the market. I mean, there's newer companies, there's smaller, 4 main, like, contemporary competitors, right? Their businesses our size that do roughly the same business and that sort of thing. They're all at these big shows. So if a customer is looking for that level of service, there's us and 4 others. At the chamber shows, at the community shows, it's us. So if there's someone that's looking for that level of service, we are the only conversation. So anyway, just a tip. If you wanted to check out, if you're getting in business or you want to grow your business, start with the smaller chamber shows.
Also, the plumbing is mostly wrapped up. Let me know what you guys think about the new format. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors.
And that's it. That's the new format. So it's short and sweet. It was, it's like 8 minutes or something? 6.5. Yeah. So, well, 6.5 minutes because it was like our first, like it's our first one, right? Like it was our first foray into filming and, Braden filming and editing and putting it together. I think it's phenomenal. Let me know what you guys think in the comments of the new format. Really like more of a vlog style. We can review what went on at Ozark Fence Company. Now, one thing you're going to find in the next several weeks, there's not a lot of fencing content in this because it's rained 3 out of the 5 work days for the last month, right? So there's not a lot of great fence content because like you don't really want to take this video gear out into the elements when it's storming. A lot of times the guys will still work, but the video gear is not great to go out in the field. But fear not, the one that we recorded this week does have fencing content in it. We sent some guys out to West Plains to I don't want to give too much away, but we fixed a fence, so I think it'd be interesting. Actually, I haven't seen the footage. I talked to the guys that went out, and they told me a little bit about the footage. So I think you guys will like that. Actually, there's fence footage in previous ones also. So that one didn't have fence content, but it's the following ones will. I hope you guys enjoy that content. I feel like it's more of a real look into a fence company than recording this type of content because this is obviously a controlled environment. It's in a studio. It's the lighting's right. The backdrop's right. I like to get more content that's more real life. And we also want to take feedback from you guys on what you guys would like to see in the content, right? So as it progresses, leave comments in that content suggesting other things of the business that you'd like to see. Do you want to see more operational type content? The stuff that I don't know would make great visual content, putting out requests for bid on resupplying chain link fitting, something we did recently, and issuing purchase orders, receiving the inventory in, stocking it. I think that would be interesting. I don't know. Like, is that something you guys would want to see? Do you guys want to see? What do you want to see? I guess is a question I'm asking. We bring in, so here's part of the thought behind this, is we bring in fencing contractors once a quarter. Actually, this is a good plug. We're taking applications now for the third spend a day with the expert is where we call that, I believe, where we fly in, or the last, and you guys will see this next little bit, but the second winner actually drove in from Colorado. But we'll typically either fly or drive you in. You spend at least a day. So they spent a day and a half. They came in a little bit early with me and the team, view the facility, and basically have full access. We tell all the team members know that if they're on site doing training, they get full access everywhere. There's no secret conversations. Nothing's off limits. So we bring them in and all that. So, but part of the feedback we've gotten so far is like they want to see more of content like that. The reason they come to visit with us is there's not a lot of content out there about how to operate, how to scale an operation, maybe, or maybe there's not a lot of content about how sales are handled, the process involved, that sort of thing. And so that kind of got the wheels turning, right? That maybe this is content that we should put out there, is more of a review look, a weekend review look of what goes on at our fence company, because it's probably a lot like what goes on at other fence companies, or maybe it's not. Maybe we do things differently and we need a little advice on, how to scale or how to change something anyway. Let us know in the comments what kind of content you guys would like to see. Also, like I said, we're running right now. It's the current contest is open for submissions on Spend a Day with the Expert. So if you'd like to come shadow me and the team for a day, apply, check out the communities tab. We have a link in the communities tab to submit your information. It's a Google form. It takes 5 minutes to fill out, maybe about you and your company, where you're headed, what you're wanting to do with your company, how you're wanting to grow your company. So yeah. Is that right, Braden? They check it out in the community tab. Check it out in the community tab. Actually, as I'm saying that, I'm remembering I was supposed to record a YouTube short this week where I told you guys that we were taking submissions. So that will be coming. It's through the end of the month. You've got plenty of time to fill it out. Check it out in the community tab. So literally just if you guys are watching on the YouTube, literally click the channel. Not right now. Wait till this is over, but click the channel tab. Click over to community, and it'll have our community post. Or if you're watching on Facebook or another page, youtube.com/Joe Everest. Let's type that in the chat. And then, again, navigate to the communities tab. Oh, Braden is already ahead of me on this one. I shouldn't have even mentioned it. I should have known that he would just put it up there. So click the link in the chat below, youtube.com/C/Joe Everest /community. That's exactly how you find it. Yeah. And it's, we pay for the travel. We pay for the hotel. We feed you, the whole thing. Like literally the only money you need to outlay is if you want to go. So we put you up at a hotel called Angler's Inn, which is right across the street from Bass Pro Shops. Now, Springfield, Missouri is the world headquarters of Bass Pro Shops. Therefore, we have the biggest one in the world at all times. Like Johnny Morris is not going to let this one be outshone by one of the other stores. So anyway, right across the street. So we try to get done in enough time Thursday night and Friday for you to go explore Bass Pro because it is a time. Like it is very worth the time you spend. Anyway, the only money is whatever incidentals you spend. We cover the travel, room, the board, the meals, the whatever. I got it because do not want there to be a barrier of entry for someone to not come and learn and get a look. Listen, it is a day worth of training, so we try to cram as much into it. I know that we probably missed some things, but I don't want there to be a barrier of entry when it comes to cost for coming in for a day's worth of training. So we cover everything. The trade-off is, so nothing in this life is free, right? So and I say that because there's always a question asked a few times, like, well, what's in it for you? Like, what's the gotcha here? What's the snare? Are you trying to sell me something when I come in? Absolutely not. What we're doing is we're filming content, right? We're making content around the training. It also makes me and the team feel good to know that we have a positive impact on someone else's business. If there are questions around this, I would absolutely, and I've talked to the guys so far that have come out. Both Kevin and Jason are perfectly fine fielding phone calls or messages from you guys. If you got questions, like when I show up, what's going to happen? Like, is it a sales pitch? It's absolutely not. Like the first time it turned like it, we would shut this thing down before it turned into a sales pitch because that makes me feel weird. Like I'm not comfortable in that scenario. Anyway, very lengthy conversation to say it's open. Please submit. If you've submitted before, please resubmit because Jason and I were talking about this at dinner the other day or when they were in was we had a hard time picking a winner. Like there can only be one, right? Is because this thing it costs a little money to put on, right? And if we had two people here, then we're trying to split the team's time between two people. It's less valuable for both of the people because they don't have full access, right? They have shared access. I wish we could bring in more, but right now it's not feasible. We're trying to figure out how we could scale this, but regardless, that's a conversation too that happens. As I say irregardless, and people say I should say regardless. I looked this up in the Webster Dictionary. Irregardless is correct. So I think they're both correct. Anyway, we had to make some hard choices when we chose both times. Kevin and Jason, winner 1 and 2. It got to the point where we had 3 to 5 people where we felt really good about choosing any one of those. And so we had to get into just nitty gritty detail. We had to look at, and sometimes, so what it is we would rank these, right? And so we would average the ranks between Jeremy and I, and now Braden's involved. So the 3 of us, we'd average the ranks to get an average rank. And then whoever averaged highest, that's who would win because we were good with any of them. Like we couldn't make a wrong choice here. 3 to 5 with the cream rose to the top. Any one of those would have been a great choice. I say all this to say, if you submitted and you weren't chosen, please resubmit because if I could take you, I probably would have, right? Like it came down to, I don't want to say a coin flip because it's not that, but it's literally the difference of an average ranking of like half a rank or something. Like the average was, whatever, 2.5, and your rank was average 2.5, and the other rank was average 2. So we chose average 2. And it's not great to put it out there like that, right? And like that doesn't feel good to tell people like you just missed by half a rank. But that's the reality, is we can't take everyone. So anyway, please submit if you haven't submitted before, or if you have submitted before. And if you haven't, absolutely submit. I mean, we want submissions because we want to try to find as many people as possible that we can have a meaningful impact. That's it. That's literally it, is we're trying to make meaningful impact on people's lives and on their businesses. So far, talking to Kevin and Jason, it's worked out pretty well. Actually, we have that, Braden, we have that video that we're doing where, how did we do? Yeah, that's going to be in one of the weekend lives, right? Yeah, Jason's, it'll be probably a couple weeks away. It'll be next week. Tune in next week for Jason's trip in. I may be submitting sooner than later. Roger, do it. I mean, we love it. So here's how it works. Let's peel back the curtain. How close? Well, it's 12:30 naturally, but we're going to go over because this is important. Peel back the curtain. Let you guys know. So basically, what it is we will review all the submissions. Now we'll automatically weed out any that don't meet the stipulations, and they're on there. It's pretty easy to make the. Basically, we want to make sure you are in the fencing business, that you are established isn't the right word, but you're not someone that's just thinking about it, right? Like you're actively in the fencing industry trying to grow a business, right? And but also that you're not already established. And I say that to say, like, one company we weeded out that's been in the business for 10 plus years. They had 12 plus employees. I understand that company needs help. Yes, but is the impact as meaningful there as someone that had, well, Kevin's story, we shared it with you guys, that he's not new in the business. He had worked for another company, went out on his own, that sort of thing. Him and his dad came in to get training on how to scale up so that their company size-wise looked a lot like the company where we're at now. So I saw that and thought, well, we could have some really meaningful impact there to simply show them what our roadmap looked like to get here. It's always easier to look in the rearview mirror and see where you've come from, right? And introduce them to the team members we've put in place to foster that growth. That day had a much more meaningful impact on him than likely it would have to a company that is contemporary in size to ours, that because we're still trying to figure out a lot of this stuff too. Anyway, so there's some bare minimum stipulations you got to meet. If you meet them, you move on to round 2, where the process now is that me and Braden and Jeremy then sit and review them privately, or not privately, just not with each other, and rank them, right? And so then we kind of compare ranks, where who was number 1, and we kind of compare it around the room. Who was your number 2 pick, 3 pick, 4 pick, that sort of thing. And that's kind of where the conversation starts on why did you put this company over that company? Because maybe I had them switch, or in the case of me and Jeremy, like we had kind of some similar rankings. And then, so one thing we're doing this round is we're implementing kind of a final selection process, in that it incorporates a Zoom call to where we'll chat with each one. It hasn't become an issue yet, but as we're going through this, we're kind of realizing maybe we should have a final interview where we get to know the contractor a little more, have a conversation with all 3 of the people on my team and you, and just kind of talk about what you'd like to get most out of it. Because the main reason for this step is we want to hit the ground running, right? When this winner shows up, when we pick them up at the airport, we want to know your first 5 things you want to learn are this, and this. We've got that teed up for first thing in the morning so that we can get through that pretty quickly and move on to the follow-up, right? So that we're not spending the first 2 hours of the day trying to figure out exactly who you're wanting to talk to, what you're wanting to learn. We want to start you with that content. Skip past that 2 hours of an introduction, us dive a little bit deeper into your business to figure out what you're wanting to learn and grow. Anyway, Zoom call. and then the award, and then the rest of the process is going to be we schedule the travel, we schedule the hotel, we dietary restrictions. So we try to figure out, so we cater the meal that day, figure out are there any allergies or any preferences anyway. But the big thing is we all kind of rank them. So it's not really me sitting in a room like trying to choose. It's me and 2 other people trying to find the average of, because there's a lot of things I miss, right? So when we chose Kevin, there was a conversation just about company growth and things, and how where his vision of his company matched up where we are now. And it was a really good conversation that I may not have picked up on my own. But since Jeremy was the second set of eyes, he brought it to my attention, and we chatted through that. So it's not only my eyes, it's also Braden and Jeremy's. So a little bit of insight into the process there. Chris says, that's awesome. Trying to help people that want to be better. That's absolutely right. That is absolutely correct. Is we want to make sure we're focusing our efforts and our resources into someone that has a company that's wanting to grow and scale for the right reasons too, right? That, they're not just doing it to become this major corporation. They're doing it to have a meaningful impact on others. Ultimately, our hope is that we instill in this person, in this company, the drive to help someone else, right? So we give them all the tools and all the knowledge to help themselves, obviously, to grow, but also to hopefully instill in them, hey, I got some help, so I'm going to reach out to someone in my area and try to help them. So that it kind of has like this branching tree, right? And that we do this 4 times a year, each quarter. So we impact 4 people a year, but maybe those 4 people impact 2 people, right? So now this thing starts growing exponentially, and hopefully we can have some real meaningful impact in the industry in the most scalable way we can figure out now. Anyway, we got some ideas for growth in the future. But we want to talk to a few people, make sure we don't step on toes, because that's not our intent. Our intent is to touch as many contractors as possible in a meaningful way, right? So we've got some ideas on some future growth strategies, but this is step 1, that we bring people in, and we will always continue to do this. Like, I view this as just year 1 of an infinite number of years, maybe not infinite, like we all have a finite amount of years, I guess, but this is perpetual. Like, it's in perpetuity. As long as we can do this, I'm going to have people. I think it would be great if I was in my 80s and my kids are here and my sister, Sarah. So Sarah's also in this business with me. So her kids hopefully will be a part of this also. Sarah and I are sitting like in our 80s. Well, she's younger than me, but I won't tell you how younger because she will also hurt me. But we are both like near retirement or maybe in retirement, but we're still having people come in. We fostered that in the younger generation, where they're having people come in and they're helping people and having a meaningful impact. Like, you want to talk about legacy building, like that's the dream. I really feel like that is the ultimate dream. That's where we're headed. All right, one last question. So 12:30, typically we would do this 12 to 12:30 Central, 10 to 12:30 Central, 12:38 per usual. It never ends at the right time. I always see one last question. Can I pre-make an arbor, then set the post in concrete, or do you need to set the 4x4 post, then build from there? I've seen it done both ways. So there's a company here in town that will pre-make the arbor and bring it out on site, put it exactly where you want it, lay it out exactly where you want it, because sometimes it's hard to visualize these things, right? So they'll set it exactly where you want it, then mark out where the footers need to go, move the arbor, drill, set footers. Now they still come back on a separate day to actually do the finish installation where they attach the arbor to the footers. I've seen it done that way. I've also seen them built on site. So my experience has been you can do it either way. I think it's probably better to build the arbor first so that you can visualize exactly what it's going to look like in the layout, in the area that you're thinking about laying it out in. It's probably how, if I were to do it, that's probably exactly how I would do it. But you can also build it on site. You could set your post first and then build it on the post as well. That would certainly work. So the answer is yes, either way. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. Like I said, Macy's building boxes furiously. She's actually probably done building boxes by now. Yeah. So she and I are going to go grab some lunch, I believe. No live next week. So once a quarter, we have an executive advisory committee here within Ozark Fence. The different division heads, we all meet once a quarter to strategize on future growth of the company. That's next week. So no live next week, but then we should be continuing the lives from there. I literally don't think there's another trip planned until the TChem event in July. So these things should continue for quite a while, uninterrupted and unimpeded. As always, if you have questions, if you're watching this on replay, drop your questions in the comments below. I do get notified when the comments come in. I try to answer them as quickly as possible. Now, on that subject, there's a lot of comments coming in. We've got a few videos right now on the YouTube channel that have absolutely taken off to the moon. There are, I don't know about hundreds of comments a day, but there are a ton of comments a day coming in. I'm trying to keep up with those and the emails and the growing divisions of the company. There's only one of me. So please drop in the comments below, but please understand that I might not reply immediately to the comments, but I see them and I will respond to them because I have a setting in my YouTube studio that where I can view unanswered questions and just start at the top and just start answering all the ones that I haven't answered yet. That's exactly my process. I will do it. Drop a comment in the comments below if you have a question. I would love to be able to help you. Until next time, which is 2 weeks from today, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you good fences make good neighbors. I'll see you next time. Taking a long time to